All right, now that we've concluded that, we'll move on to the regular school board meeting. It's Monday, July 24th, 2023. 6:41. Not Ms. Guadalupe. We'll call the meeting to order and Mr. Shelton for the roll, please.
Mr. Ocker? Here. Mr. Gayhook? Mr. Gadden? Here. Mrs. Ingersoll?
Here.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Here.
Mrs. Berkeley?
Here.
Mr. Scarrow?
Here. All right, we do have a quorum. Tonight's meeting is in accordance with state statute. First, we're going to have a statement from Mr. Pella.
All right, typically we run to a statement prior to community participation, but earlier this week it was brought to my attention early Tuesday morning that a radio program was speaking to the district's gender support protocols. And I immediately reached out to that radio show because there was misinformation that was being shared in that, and I wanted to have an opportunity to answer any questions and provide clarification. Unfortunately, I was not able to get through on the phone line, and nobody reached back out to me. I did send an email to that individual that day, providing some clarification, inviting for that individual, Mr. O'Donnell, to reach out and speak to me about this, as I'm always happy to speak to anybody in the media, whether they're talk show host, news outlet, or anybody. And I think what's most important is that correct and information is provided to our community first and foremost, but also the general public at large. Unfortunately, I did not receive any phone call back or any emails back. He did acknowledge, I listened to the segment the following day, that he did say that it was his mistake that he had one of the letters mixed up in our email address. I'm a person, I hate our email address at wisconsin.k12.wi.us. However, the individual did have my email that I had sent to them. Would have loved to have had a conversation. That did not happen, but that being said, I want to make sure that I know that there's a lot of individuals that may want to speak to this evening, but I want to make sure that everybody had at least the facts and the genesis and the why there's such a thing as a gender support protocol prior to that taking place. And we do have a community participation. We have it every school board meeting. And then after that, we do have it on the agenda as a discussion item. So any school board members and the board may have a discussion related to that topic as well. So as I mentioned, again, this is in the interest of providing accurate information. We prepared this outline. And this is going to probably feel, I'll be the first to admit, a little wonky from a legal standpoint, but really that is the genesis and the purpose of why this was created. So I'll go back, and much of this was taken from a WASB, that's the Wisconsin Association of School Boards guidance that was issued to school district leaders and school boards both in 2020, another legal update in 2021. I probably attended, in the last 8 years since I've been superintendent here, this is going into my 11th year, this topic really came up about my 2nd year as a school district administrator. I've probably been to more than a dozen legal seminars where there's presentations and updates related to this very topic. First and foremost, the 14th Amendment, which is relevant to the Gender Support Plan, states that no state shall deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. This guarantees equal protection of the law to all citizens, and it applies to public schools. All students have a federal constitutional right to equal protection, which means that schools have a duty to protect all students from unlawful harassment on an equal basis. Title IX, which was written in 1972 and adopted, prohibits sex discrimination in education and in employment. It states no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. Title IX is really that law that oversees or provides that jurisdiction to this specific topic. In 2016, and I'm just giving you the snippets from much larger presentation. We have the links, and I'll be happy to share this entire presentation online, but you can go through it. It's a 68-page legal presentation. But there's a Dear Colleague letter on transgender students jointly issued by the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice and the Department of Education. When they do a Dear Colleague letter, that goes out to everybody who's under that jurisdiction or is required to meet those standards, and provided guidance to all schools regarding the rights of transgender students under Title IX. At that time, the gender support plans or protocols were created by myself in cooperation with People Services. We received this letter from the federal government. I remember very distinctly because we were in the process of the 2016 referendum, the building design plans, and we asked the architects at that time, do we need to make all of our bathrooms stalled bathrooms because of this guidance that came out in 2016? It was that same time frame. We obviously did not. The men's restrooms that are new still have urinals, but we did have those conversations and those discussions because of this original guidance that was sent out. Those original protocols were created in order to provide our school counselors, our guidance office for working with students. What do we do when we have a student with gender dysphoria or a student wanting those supports that comes to us? How do we handle that? And we didn't have that guidance or process, so we set up those administrative guidances for those protocols at that time. Another letter came out in February 22, 2017. That was after the Obama administration. It was Trump's first year. He withdrew that letter. But what was interesting was that they also said, please note that this withdrawal of these guidance documents does not leave students without protections from discrimination, bullying, or harassment. All schools must ensure that all students, including LGBT students, are able to learn and thrive in a safe environment. There was a Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals decision, which is our federal court jurisdiction, in that same time frame, actually in 2017. That court decision interpreted the term sex. It's called the Whitaker Court, relied on employment law cases discussing the prohibition on sex discrimination under Title VII. The Seventh Circuit Court held that the district, this was the Kenosha School District, violated the students' rights when they enforced a district policy requiring an individual to use a bathroom that does not conform with his or her gender identity. The court held that the policy punished the transgender individuals for their gender nonconformance and subjected Ash, who was the name of the student, a transgender student, to different rules, sanctions, and treatment than non-transgender students. This case was particularly important to us because we're under that same federal jurisdiction and that same court's case law. If that was the 11th Circuit Court, that wouldn't be as applicable to us because that's a different case. Ironically, the 11th Circuit Court just had a case where the student was denied access to the facilities to which that student was gender expressing. Therefore, we now have two federal cases that have conflicting rulings. Our school lawyer is anticipating that probably in the spring, the Supreme Court will pick up that case from the 11th Circuit Court and hear it and then probably make a ruling, but we're probably a year to year and a half out from that taking place. Title VII and Title IX's interaction regarding gender identity on June 15, 2020, the Supreme Court held that discrimination on the basis of an individual's status as homosexual or transgender constitutes sex discrimination within the meaning of Title VII of the Civil Rights. The Supreme Court held it's impossible to discriminate against a person for being homosexual or transgender without discriminating against that individual based on sex. You can look up the Bostock versus Clayton City, Georgia case. There's a case with kind of, this case spawned, I don't want to say spawned, it spurred that revisitation of our gender support plan at the request of the school board members, because some of you may have remembered this, but a few years ago, both at the Eau Claire School District and at the Madison Metropolitan District, there was a group of 14 parents that filed suit against the Madison Metropolitan School District for enforcing a policy or a guideline or practice that reflected or recommended in its document entitled Guidance of Policies to Support Transgender, Non-Binary, and Gender Expansive Students, in any manner that allows or requires district staff to conceal information or to answer untruthfully in response to any question the parents ask about their child at school, including information about the name and pronouns being used to address their children at school. Our gender support plan at that time, we had no such guidance. We did not tell our staff to conceal or hide from parents that information. We didn't speak to that and didn't have that specific guidance in there. There was an injunction put in place. My understanding is that case is not finalized, but the injunction that was put in place does not create an affirmative obligation to disclose information if that obligation does not already exist at law, and shall not require or allow school district staff to disclose any information that they are otherwise prohibited from disclosing to parents by any state or federal law or regulation. So in just reviewing this with our lawyer, this is an area that's still a little bit in limbo. Our policy requires our staff to have a conversation, or not our policy, I apologize, it's not a policy, our protocols requires our staff to speak with parents within 10 days. What was being misconstrued was that the students can implement these gender support plans or these accommodations for 10 days and then the parents are notified. Nothing gets implemented or put into place until those conversations that involvement the parents have. What the 10-day guideline is that you need to work with the student. If they're not ready right away to have that conversation with the parent, at a maximum, you have up to 10 days before the parent needs to be informed. Because we do want those conversations to take place and be had. What's difficult or challenging there is that area is a little bit in legal limbo in the sense that there are certain areas that students have a right to confidentiality in their discussions with their counselors and so forth. But per our guidance, our staff are to have those conversations with parents. And I want to be extremely clear, no supports are put in place without those conversations happening and that notification. There is a brand new case that I am aware of as well called Jane Doe number 1 versus McGuanago Area School District. There's a hyperlink in this right to the case of the legal firm, Relvin Koufax, filed this gender discrimination lawsuit against the McGuanago Area School District and Superintendent Joe Code for denying Jane Doe 1, an 11-year-old transgender girl, access to the girls' restroom at school. The girl's name is being withheld to protect privacy. The complaint raises claims under Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 and the Equal Protection Clause. They sought emergency release on behalf of Jane Doe, and on June 6, 2023, Judge Lynn Alderman agreed that the students likely to prevail under precedent in the U.S. Supreme Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit Court established in 2017 in the case called Whitaker, brought by Relvin Koufax against the school district of Kenosha. Kenosha ended up paying $800,000 to settle that case. You're wondering why it didn't go to the Supreme Court. They ended up settling that case. The court order bars the McGuanago Area School District, located 30 miles from Milwaukee, from enforcing any policy or practice that would deny student access to the girls' restrooms and from taking any disciplinary action against her for using the restroom. The lawsuit is pending the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Wisconsin. So going back in 2021, there were those concerns in regards in particular to, are we notifying parents? How do we handle this process? And school board member asked for that to be reviewed. Our natural process on procedures like that is through our policy committees. And we held 2 policy committee meetings. These are publicly posted meetings. The agendas are available and as well as the minutes related to them. The 2 meetings were held on June 22nd, 2021 was the first one. We were given some direction. Our Title IX coordinator, Mrs. Sarah Bosch, went back, worked with legal, worked with a team of staff members, and they reworked the gender support protocols and brought them back, and we reviewed those again on September 27th of 2021 to make sure that we had working protocols that were satisfactory to our district, to the school board policy committee at that time, and then in compliance with the law as much as we possibly could be. A lot of these laws there's a lot of debate amongst the legal community around, what are the rights, how far would that go? And I think there's a lot of legal experts that would love to run cases to court to get a more definitive answer. We are expecting further guidance in October of this year from the State Department of Education and Department of Justice, specifically related to the rights of transgender students and how those should be handled in schools. And then, as I mentioned before, there is this anticipation or expectation that the Supreme Court will likely pick up the case, but that's probably a year and a half away before we get that more definitive ruling from the Supreme Court. After the development of those protocols in 2021, or the revisiting of those, we did train all of our staff in the school district, all the elementary staff, the middle school, and the high school staff as well. They were brought up to speed regarding those protocols. In particular, we wanted to make sure that if a student reported to a teacher that the student's words aren't going to be, I'm experiencing gender dysphoria. But let's say it's a young biologically male student, he goes to a teacher and says, I really feel like I would like to use female pronouns, or I'm feeling like, I might not be a boy or a male. We wanted to make sure that our teachers knew that the process was to immediately refer that to the guidance office, so that individual can then work with the parents, have those conversations, and make sure that we have some plans in place that, one, meet the guidance by the law, but two, also honor the wishes and respected student and parents in cooperation with them. We didn't want the individual staff members being in that awkward position of implementing what they felt was best and going against the parent wishes and that design as well. So yeah, those trainings were held. I'm aware that those were circulated online, looked at as controversial. I guess I didn't realize that, I don't know what they call it, the gender unicorn. I didn't know that was a controversial thing. I guess maybe it's been more controversial in the past 2 years since that training was held. But again, that was a training for staff, not for students. So I think adults were capable of handling that. Not a speaker training, it's not a speaker plan. We trained over 500 staff members on that document. We also had public requests for that record in 2021, which it was gladly shared without hesitation. Gender support plan basic facts that I want to make sure everybody understands. No plans to be implemented without parent contact and involvement. And parent contact, as Dan O'Donnell questioned, does not mean leave a voicemail and see you later. It doesn't mean writing an erroneous email like you did to me. He asked that. No, that doesn't count. It's having a conversation, making sure they're involved, and making sure that they're aware of what's going on, and that they have that invitation to be participants in that. 10 days is a deadline for staff to work with students and speaking with parents. No plan is implemented without parent communication and involvement. We currently have, I figured some might ask that, or well, how many gender support plans do we have in place in the district? We have 22 in place between the middle school and the high school, which is approximately 0.06% of our student population, 0.06 of 1%. Now, I recognize these are just students with the actual gender support plans in place. We looked up, well, how does that compare nationally? For young adolescents and young adults, gender dysphoria is experienced by as many as 5% of the general population. It comes back down to adults who actually identify as transgender as 1.6%. So when we're looking at that, that's just, it's not making a statement regarding it, it's just providing information related to where we're at in our school district. No student currently has usage of the restroom or locker room with which the gender they identify as part of their current support plans. What that means is within our support plan, students either are utilizing family restrooms or the restroom aligned with their biological sex. No student will ever be required. I think this is the elephant in the room. People want to know. I completely understand this. I have a teenage daughter. I have young adolescent boys in school. Will my student be required to use a restroom or use a locker room with someone of the opposite biological sex? No student will ever be required to do that. Accommodations will or would be made if we ever get to that point. Communications would be shared with parents, and we would be accommodating both the student with the gender support plan, but also the students that don't have a gender support plan and providing a space for them where they could be, maintain their privacy and just use the facilities with either themselves or with those of the same biological sex. Gender support plan protocols are not a board policy, similar to many other procedures and plans that we have. 504 plans, IEP plans, differentiated education plans. We have many processes that are in place within the school district that are given administrative guidance to that are not formal board policies. And in part, one, it's either not required by the law to make it a formal board policy, or two, it allows us to be more nimble as some of these circumstances and situations are fluid. It also reserves the right of the school board to overrule an administrative guidance or protocol at any time. Once something is codified as board policy, that becomes much more cumbersome and also grants greater entitlements and rights and puts a greater legal obligation on the school board at that point. The gender support plan protocols are not secret. They've been available for anyone to see and review. I fully admit, you're right. If you don't link those and post those on our website, there's lots of support plans, protocols, and procedures that we don't link and post on our website. That doesn't mean that anyone couldn't request those, and those can be provided at any time, and they have been provided at any time. We do not have secret documents. I would say, other than the only thing in a public school district that can be secret are confidential notes related to an investigation of a matter. That's it. Everything else is open record requested by me. The individual gender support plans, however, are confidential and are protected by FERPA and are the privacy of that individual. So we do have to be careful in regards to what information we share. We can't disclose. We can't, out that particular student. For those interested in doing that deep dive that's outlined as it relates to schools, I provided legal updates. And again, I'll have Jody post this under our agendas and minutes section of the school board and make sure that these links are all active. You can dive into the 68-page presentation from 2020 or 2021, provided to the schools by the School Board Association. And much of this presentation was directly taken from those presentations. As always, I'm always happy to speak to anyone at any time. My direct line goes to my cell phone. Sometimes people are surprised when they call at 9 o'clock at night and I answer the phone. Just know that it comes to my cell phone. That's my choice. I can let it go voicemail, but I like to be responsive, answering the questions. To be frank, most of the phone calls or emails that I've gotten were people just sincerely wanting clarification on the topic and the issues, or people upset that their personal emails were somehow co-opted by this sons and daughters of Elkhorn email. I can tell you, as I did have several people ask if that was a school district email, it was not a school district email. It appeared to be made to look like it, but we did look into it, and from what we can tell, no school district staff member sent that email out. I did just want to clarify that. And at the heart of this, and I did include this little meme here, that I just want to have a reminder that there is no standard student. Every child that we serve has talents, passions, and the potential to be amazing. And that's something that we will always strive to do in the Elkhorn Area School District, is meet the need of each and every student and protect the rights and privileges of each and every student. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, this time we'll take community participation. Since I'm assuming there's going to be some, I'll just read the statement here. So pursuant to School Board Policy 187, residents of the Elkhorn Area School District, families of district students, and employees wishing to address the board may do so in person. The verbal comment period shall last no longer than 30 minutes, limited to 3 minutes maximum per person. If a community member wishes to email public comments, they may do so to the district administrator at his email address. The contents of the email will be forwarded to the entire board, as well as entered into the minutes for public record. A reminder for any citizen of the speaking during committee participation to complete a sign-in sheet by the door, accurately to provide the administration with your name, address, phone number, and email. This will help them with any follow-up. Finally, community participation period is an important time for the Board of Education to hear concerns, gratitude, et cetera, of its constituents. That said, prior to making a statement, please be aware that each speaker bears the personal risk that you may say during community participation. The school board is defamatory, slanderous, or otherwise harmful to the individual. With that, we'll get a microphone around it.
Those wishing to participate in community participation, this front row is open. Perhaps if we had them sit, line up in the chairs there. And Mr. Anzalone has a microphone right there for those wishing to participate. Just make sure that you share your name and whether you're a resident of the school district or parent of an open enrolled student, so that we have it for the record.
Okay, so we're starting the public comment period at 7:07. Sally will.
Good evening, Ellen Polly, former school employee, retired counselor, 4-H leader, religious education leader, Girl Scout leader. I do live in the district. My daughter attended this district. I goofed up. I did not know when to do my first statement, but I will do my second statement. Did you know that 36% of people that are redheaded identify being harassed or bullied? Did you know that 74% of these people have symptoms of anxiety? Oh, I didn't mean redheads, I meant LGBTQ kids. LGBTQ kids are, they are not suicidal based on their sexual orientation or gender identity, but they are mistreated and stigmatized. And our job as a public school is to work with productively every single student. 43% of Wisconsin LGBTQ students do not feel like they have parent support, and that's hard. And school districts need to know that, but school districts need to be respectful of that with the parents, but also need to serve the students. 74% of them, LGBTQ, not redheads, have symptoms of anxiety, and 59% of them suffer from depression. 44% have considered suicide. And as a school counselor, who with my 20 years of working here had over 20 students die, the majority of them suicide. Our small town deserves better than that. I know not everybody believes in facts and data, but this was taken from the Trevor Project. It's very disturbing to see that so many of our students feel like they are at risk. The ending of my former statement was without unduly and unfairly demonizing school board members, administrators, and educators, we, our community, I value community, I value public education. We should be working together to find solutions to the problems in our schools, leaving our differences at the door. We should be working together, not demonizing, and we should make sure that every single student in the Elkhorn School District has the first-rate outstanding public education, which will unlock incredible opportunities and which will benefit students and our communities. Thank you.
Can you hear me? So my name is Carl Perdita. I'm a father. My current daughter attends this district, and I was one of those parents that caught wind of this. I don't know, I ended up late last week, maybe the beginning of this week. Very concerned parent. Now I'm a little bit in a different situation. I have this conversation for me is rather difficult. I'm a believer of providing all students with protection, right? Nobody wants your kid to go to school and be bullied by something that they're not. But one of the things that hit me hardest the most was having this conversation in the house, closed doors with my wife, certain other people, and my daughter catching wind, She asked me a question. She said, Dad, she said, if a boy from the opposite gender happens to come into my line, happens to come into the bathroom, what am I going to do? How am I going to feel? What resources do we have? These are all questions I didn't have answers. So I'm going to lean on the school board, the superintendent, the gentleman that runs the program. I think these need to be, at some point, very defined answers. So we have answers that we can give our children. Now, I know this goes a bit further than just my daughter. This also goes for the students that these accommodations are being made for. Respectfully for. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we should dismiss this group of people. I don't even know if that was the right term. But what I will say is accommodations and definitions need to be defined better than what they currently are. I don't have answers that I can't give my daughter. Currently, from what I learned today, is that there's nobody that is going through this program that is currently using the bathrooms. But when is the switch? What is that threshold? And what form of communication is going to be pushed out to the parents? I feel, and this is just my opinion, you guys can take it for what it's worth.
30 seconds.
I feel that the lack of communication from the Elkhorn Area School District on this matter, even though it was publicly posted, whether it was or wasn't, how I found out wasn't very clear. I feel like we deserve better. So if I had to come up here and say my main focal point behind this is better transparency when it comes to communication and more defining answers that I can provide for my child and children in this district. All I'm asking.
Hello, I'm Coda Ravenna. I'm a student of Elkhorn Area School District, and I am transgender. He, him pronouns, and I am one of the 22 students with the gender support. And it saved me, almost it. Saved me from a life that I almost ended myself, October 9th, 2022. When living something that wasn't myself became too hard. After coming out in the school environment, a weight was lifted off my shoulders. My smile became bigger, and I felt seen and recognized for how I truly feel. But when one weight went, another weight replaced it. A weight of constantly needing to explain and advocate for my own basic existence and a human amount of respect. Questions of if I'm an it, a thing, or questions of what are you? What was bolded and italicized in my notes. Being asked what insinuated what I am is not human. I am instead replaced with an objectifying inquiry. The gender support plan also continues to support me through this struggle. When someone may continuously or viciously dead name me or discuss my identity in a publicly humiliating way, GSP or gender support plan gives me a healthy method of solving the matter. Mrs. Kilkenny, my counselor in the beginning of my GSP journey, will bring said hypothetical student into her office and have a healthy discussion about mutual respect and coexisting in a school environment. In an extremely simplified manner, it would go around, I know you disagree with what this person may be saying, but how can we make it so that you both can exist in a classroom environment and show basic mutual respect? And she even would offer explanations if any of the students had questions. GSP is not a form of indoctrination. It is a lifesaver that made me and so many other people feel seen as a person and has given me the strength to come speak my truth in front of all of you. not as an attack, but as a way to educate and hopefully help another kid that felt the same way I did. I think my mission, if I did help another kid that felt the same way I did, I think my mission in this lifetime was successful. It's time to follow. Hello, my name is Brenda. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a parent in the district. I've come today to express my pride in the Elkhorn Area School District because every single day I see the commitment of the board, the administration, the staff, and the community to ensuring that every single child that comes here knows they belong. My son, and I say this with his permission and his support, got his start in life at an intersecting place: poverty, disability, substance use disorders, mental health diagnoses, and domestic abuse. And without the amazing work and all the support provided by this district, I can confidently say that he would not be where he is today, ready to start his sophomore year, hoping to play lacrosse at Notre Dame, and just enjoying life, looking for a job in the community. The board has made and continues to make commitments in our district's mission statements, in our goals, and in the manner in which business is conducted throughout the district, and making sure that every child feels that they belong. It's in our equity statement, it's in our mission statement, and I see it every day in the way policies and procedures are implemented. As a parent and an advocate for children involved in the foster care system, I've had the chance to see this district in action in some really tough spots. And over again, I've seen amazing, extraordinary staff members step up to the plate and make kids feel like they belong, know that they have support. So thank you to our entire district. Thank you for committing to that right to belong. Thank you for ensuring that these kids can find the post-secondary paths that are right for them. Thank you for supporting activities, events, clubs that allow participation by everyone, regardless of their circumstances or abilities. Thank you for encouraging supportive, positive, inclusive language, because using a preferred name or a nickname, saying adults instead of moms and dads, or just using preferred pronouns helps keep the focus on the message, not on the groups to which a child feels that they do or don't belong. Thank you for continuing to support a positive and respectful atmosphere at every level and in every space. Our district is on the smaller side, and so the groups of kids and families that don't fit into what might be considered the social or socioeconomic, religious, or philosophical norms can be small. And as Mr. Tavart demonstrated, they can be so small that they're hard to see or easy to miss. The kindness, openness, and inclusion are as bright as sunlight when you're used to being left out in the dark. To the board and the community members, I'd like to ask that you consider these questions as you continue your work. Does this action help make every single student feel like they belong? And does every student have an equitable chance to take part in this opportunity? Thank you.
My name is Crystal Andraska. I wasn't prepared for this meeting tonight as I found out about it last minute. So excuse me if I don't articulate myself as well as I could have had I had more time to prepare. My concern, first off, I want to say that I don't believe anybody should be bullied. I believe that everybody has the right to a safe place and be respected. I understand that we have issues facing the board because of all the legal aspects. But I read over the training program you guys got for the gender protocol. I'm deeply concerned for the elementary student level, especially. I do not believe that gender is a subjective matter. I believe that young children especially need to be taught what is right and objective truth. I believe that gender is not on a spectrum, and nature and God have made that more clear. I feel I have a sad heart for all those who experience gender dysphoria, and I wish and hope that they can find all the help they can to find their self and be happy with their identity as a person. And I understand that at the top of the medical experts, this is a very controversial subject matter, and I see both sides. I understand that we have transgender, gender dysphoric students and who are going through these issues and need help. The kind of help I don't think we need to do we don't need to be implementing through our schools, and they say it's not indoctrination, but when you have kindergarten students who aren't allowed to use, who aren't hearing word boys and girls, which is part of your protocol, you don't want to use boys and girls, you don't want to refer to moms and dads, you don't want to, I mean, you're normalizing something that is a psychological issue, which confuses our young students, drastically confuses our young students. I have an 8-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 23-year-old who all were in the Elkhorn area school district. I'm deeply concerned how these kids are going to look at, like, oh, I'm in my kindergartner, my 8-year-old will just say, oh, entertain an idea she knows nothing about. It's not a lesbian and gay issue. The transgender issues are completely separate. This is not a discriminatory issue. And I will be involved further to figure this out. Otherwise, I don't know. This is a scary situation. No.
Hi, my name is Brooke Turner, and I'm here to take a stance with the public Elkhorn Area School District on the controversial topic currently upsetting the Elkhorn families. I believe that society should be progressive, that it can be hard for any past generation to accept anything new. I imagine how our ancestors must have felt when change was made to their culture, from driving a car, using a computer or cell phone, or even women wearing pants. Change can be difficult. However, being exposed to information or cultural differences that vary from a person's norm or belief does not change that person or shape that individual's mindset. However, their reaction does. So instead of shielding our children from the new or unfamiliar and disagreeing while we turn our backs and choose to run in fear, talk to your children and let them educate you. Let them show you what they know and what they don't, so that you can impart your wisdom, your faith, your life experience, and your truth to help guide them and shape how they're influenced by something you may not agree with or may simply just be unfamiliar with. By taking the time and effort to teach your children how to navigate these experiences through your guidance, you are teaching them to improve their character. You're teaching them that someone else does not dictate or define who they are as individuals. By showing compassion, tolerance, and truthfulness, you show your strength in your beliefs, i.e. teaching your children how to navigate a hard and challenging situation when you cannot actually be around to guide them. Instead of focusing on the problem with society, education, religion, or politics, teach your children to focus on a positive life for themselves and their families. It's a lot more productive. Change the world by changing who you are in it.
Hello, my name is Kelly Malbrand. Governor Evers signed a bill into law last Wednesday that promotes a change in the way elementary reading is taught in Wisconsin. The bill puts an emphasis back on phonics over memorization. Our elementary reading curriculum utilizes programs from Fontes and Pinnell and Marie Clay. A podcast called Soul to Story expresses that there are problems using Fontes and Pinnell. Students can't sound out most of the words because the main focus is not on phonics. According to EdReport's review, it stated that Fontes and Pinnell's programs don't meet expectations for text quality or alignment to standards. The reading program received the lowest ratings EdReports has given for kindergarten through second grade curricula in English language arts
and they are among the third lowest in grades 3rd through 5th. How will the elementary reading curriculum be changed to show that this law is being implemented in the fall? To the school board members, thank you for letting me speak. I was surprised to hear Jason say at Wednesday's board policy meeting that you wouldn't want to be a part of reviewing the school's curriculum. Is this accurate? Many school districts have a curriculum committee. Elkhorn School District should have one too. Parents and teachers' input is crucial, and I'd like to encourage you to review all curriculum that goes through our schools and no longer allow administrative guidance without your knowledge or approval. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gail Taylor. Some of you may know me, most of you probably don't. I have 6 children, 3 of which who have graduated from the Elkhorn School District. I have 3 others who I'm hoping will graduate here. We made the decision 18 years ago when we moved out of Elkhorn and into the Whitewater School District to continue to educate our kids here in Elkhorn because we loved the West Side School. And that's carried on through middle school and high school. I have 2 things that I'd like to address to you as a parent. I hope it's not too controversial. As I reflect on me growing up in school, out of all the teachers that I interacted with, I could not tell you what any of them's political persuasions were, whether they were Republican or a Democrat, what their social views were, what their religious views were. I had no idea. I had trust in them. I knew they were educators. Here in Elkhorn, we have many wonderful school teachers, but it takes only a few bad apples to kind of overshadow those experiences that our children have. I would love to say as a parent, I have never had an experience here where I haven't had to have a conversation with my children because of a teacher overstepping the trust that has been given them and their authority that they have as a teacher. Teaching my children about what their political views are, what their social views are, what their beliefs are. That should not have a place in our schools. And that's something that I would like to see. It shouldn't matter what our religious views are. It shouldn't matter what our political views are. I'm very appreciative of the school board addressing this transgender policy. I think it's important. It's important that all of our children are protected. The only issue I have in regards to the policy is I would like to see and have more of an understanding of how the bathroom and locker room procedures are going forward. I don't think it's acceptable for us to wait for an issue like happened in Sun Prairie or happened in Connecticut or happened anywhere else. I think those policies need to be addressed now. We shouldn't wait for something bad to happen for any student. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Vicki Reagan. I am the most proud parent here right now. And I'm not here to talk about Dakota. I'm in my 50s. Some of you probably are, which means we were in high school in the 80s. And we had a pretty messed up view of certain things. I'm sure a lot of you remember conversations with little boys that just call each other fag constantly. If you lose a game, you're a fag. If you can't get a date, you're a fag. And we threw that word around all the time. And now on Facebook, I'm friends with some people that I didn't know were gay. And they tell stories of what they went through, how they were ignored and bullied and picked on. And we didn't see it because we threw these words out that had no weight. They had no weight to us because it didn't mean anything to us. They had weight to those people. So what we're doing now, is it right? We don't know. We will not know for a long time, they were making the right decisions. But I can tell you is what happened to those people was wrong. So we try as humans. We do the best we can. We listen to the words of the Bible, where we are good to each other. We care for each other. We take care of the poor, the sick, the needy. We are not all the same. I guess that's really all I have to say.
Thank you, board. My name is Dennis Grabowski, a Marine Corps veteran. I believe in a lot of values. God, family, and then we have to protect each other. I am humbled by the people that get up here and talk about that they're gay or they're transgender. I don't sympathize with them. I feel as if we need to help them in however we can. I do believe that we should have separate bathrooms. That needs to happen now. But something that's probably even more than the gender is something that's happened in Fort Atkinson and Jefferson. Some of you may know, staff, I don't know if you know, but I have been told that they have litter boxes in the bathroom. You do know or you don't know?
No, I do know, they do not have litter boxes. You do not have litter boxes.
I was told they did. I was told that they were allowed to have students go up and down the hallway with issues, that the students could identify as a cat or a dog. I do not think that should be tolerated in the Elkhorn School District. We are men and women, boys and girls. I do not think that our teachers should be discussing politics with our students. They should be teaching reading, writing, arithmetic, spelling, maybe even some speech classes. I missed that one. I graduated in the 70s. Talk about controversial times. When we first went to Elkhorn High School, we had to wear dress pants. Think about 69, and I'm looking at a former classmate. About 69, we were allowed to wear blue jeans. That was a big thing. We even got to wear bell bottoms. That was even another big thing. We've gotten away from self-respect. We don't respect each other. We don't respect ourselves. And until we start respecting ourselves, our society is going to go straight to heaven. And that's all I have to say at this point.
My name is Mary Berkey. It's nice to be here because I usually show up at the elections and vote for the referendums. So it's nice to actually hear and listen to and see what our school district is doing. I just want to say that I spent a couple of years of volunteering at the Walworth County Jail, and I listened to many young people talk about what their gateway to drugs or what their gateway to crime was and what took them down that road. And I just want us to think about the real gateways to behaviors that lead to drugs. I don't really have any interest in what drugs we're talking about. They're all, well, I don't want to get into legalization of marijuana, but aside from that, the bad drugs, the real gateways are abusive behavior and bullying. So I'm glad and I appreciate the presentation from the school board and the superintendent tonight. And I don't know all of the issues. I don't pretend to know them. So I have faith in some of our elected officials, and I'm glad to hear what I heard tonight, and I will be keeping an interest in doing more than just checking the box for referendums in the future.
Hi, I'm Steve Perkins. I actually speak regularly at the school board meetings, and I was very upset with the people that put this together. And just for the record, God loves you just the way that you are, right? I don't disagree with that statement in any way possible. I do disagree with how this was implemented and how the parents found out about it, how all of us found out about it, right? Under administrative guidance. Nothing like this should be snuck through the cracks under administrative guidance. We had a policy meeting a few weeks ago. There was also a situation where the superintendent did not want people to email in their comments, did not want them to speak on the same topic a second time. He wanted to move the public speaking section to the end of the meeting. He still moved it today. I'm not sure how that was done, but I'm sure they'll address that. You know, and also when it comes down to a student, you could argue that a test is a survey to be able to kind of coax the board into passing some survey policy, right? Jason is also urging the board to not go through all this curriculum. And also, in fact, wanted to change the verbiage of curriculum to standards. Now, this was all at the policy meeting, of which there were only 6 people online. I'm glad to see that people are actually here. Because if we're here, things like this don't slip through the cracks. It is our job to hold the school board accountable. It's the school board's job to hold the administration accountable. And this was something that was big that slipped through the cracks. And everybody failed, in my eyes, on how this was implemented. Because this was not done with people knowing about it. Now there are people with concerns of what's going to happen with locker rooms, what's going to happen with sports. Does that mean my 8-year-old daughter who loves softball will not have a spot on the team because there's going to be 12 other guys that suck at baseball are now switching to softball? Just like what happened with swimming. No, that guy was 400 against all the other guys. And he switches to the women's swimming, and now he's #1 in the nation. I do have an issue with that. Because somebody should be fighting for the women in the schools. Thank you.
So now would be the time we can discuss.
Can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, get louder. Now would be the time when the board can discuss.
Yeah, we put this as an agenda item. This is just open discussion for the board. If there's any comments that any of you are wanting to make or any discussion you want to have, just make sure you use the microphone and answer by hand.
Okay, I'm at Sparrow, so I don't have a nameplate, but I think the comments about the bathroom and locker policy, I think that's something we should get cranked up on and start working on that and go to the policy committee. You know, we've got guidance on it, but let's get to work on a policy program. I don't think there's any reason to wait to develop a policy. It's something I would like us to see, so.
I did reach out to Tess O'Brien, the school attorney from Morgan and Clark, who specialized in this area. And she would be available to meet if we wanted to, because one of the discussions that we've had is to make sure that whatever we do it in a fashion that's going to be within the framework, so we don't trigger any lawsuits. We're not violating any rights. And Tess on the 14th of August would be available if we wanted to schedule a time. That's something we could do. And to your point, I think some of the comments in the public session related to having that next step is that, that what if, or what is that process or procedure if we get to that point, which isn't clearly defined in the gender support plan, and that parent notification and so forth that would go out. I think we can work with Tess and make sure that we codify that in a way that meets the needs of both the community members and the families and doesn't violate any of the laws and children. But that's good with the board on the 14th. It's already correct. Yeah.
This is Mark. So, I got a few things to say after hearing what everybody was saying. First of all, I see a little bit differently than everybody else is from this vantage point. And the first thing I gotta say is we just had a student, and I forgive you, I don't understand the proper terms and everything, so please forgive me for this, but we just had a Elkhorn student stand up in front of a room full of adults and give a pretty powerful speech.
Thank you.
Great job. Anybody's thoughts are here, that is pretty excellent that a student just did that. I'm nervous sitting up here, I'm a grown ass man, so great job. And a nurse, my apologies. So, one thing that I want to stress, we live in Elkhorn, and this is a small town. I'm from big cities, I've lived all over the world in big cities, and I came here to Elkhorn, and I love this small town. Got a small town feel, we all know each other. If you guys all look around, you see people around, you see people in Franks or Hanson's or whatever the heck it is, and you know each other, right? We have a cop here. We have a police officer presiding over this meeting. That's insane to me. That is absolutely wild. Shame on all of us. And shame on all of us because nobody's talking. We're not communicating with each other. We're pointing fingers. We're sending out nasty text messages. I fear no one but God. I'm not afraid of text messages or lawsuits or anything like that. But when I see text messages talking about howling in and calling board members that are affiliated with things they're not affiliated with, emails going around about things, rumors about me, no problem. I can take them 6'6", 300 pounds. So come to me if anybody in the community has an issue. Come to me. We're all public servants. You saw the dollars that we make here. I donate all my money to Walworth County Food Bank. I'm making money for this. I'm here for the kids. Community, and I can speak for the rest of the board if they all feel the same way. So when we're getting the radio show hosts talking about us, we're having all this stuff happen, just come to us. We all live in town, we're all parents, we're all part of this community. We're not scary or whatever, please come to us. And there has to be some kind of communication, like Blacksburg said, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, but we need to communicate with each other. I'm sorry, Matt, I don't know if I'm getting timed here, but we all need to communicate. That's the most important thing. The thing that I ran on for school board was truth, transparency, and accountability. And we need communication. We need communication with each other. We're not going to have a point where we say we're going to send these kids to private school or Catholic school or anything like that. We're all going to figure this one out together because we don't have all the answers, especially ask my wife, right? But we can figure it out together. My personal beliefs, and I said this during the campaign, my personal beliefs end at the school board door. In this room, it's about the kids, number one, and taxpayers, number two. So I encourage everybody to speak. And if Ellen Holly and I, who's a staunch Red Sox fan, if we can have lunch together, any of us can have lunch together and have a conversation. And you're buying next time. That was all I want to say. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Devin. I've only been on the school board since March, but I just wanted to say a couple things. Number one, I wanted to point out that the idea for Jason going early was on me. This was on Jason, on the administration. It was my idea that he goes first to allow for him to be able to explain the administration's position on gender support plans. I wanted, I just wanted to clear that up to make sure that everybody understands this was not Jason trying to game the system or anything else that was 100% on me. Jason rolled with it because it was, I think it was a good idea. Like very few of you actually know me. I think like 4 of you actually do. And the 4 that do know me, know that I have worked my entire adult life since I left the Marine Corps in 2011 to help and support the LGBT community. I worked hard on getting the very first openly gay Republican elected to the Assembly in Wisconsin. I worked extremely hard during the legal battles with the Supreme Court to be able to allow for the freedom to marry for all gay individuals. However, that being said, I am also a parent. And I'm a parent of currently about 11 children. There comes a point where I need to be able to protect all of my children. And that includes my daughter, that includes my sons. And if that means that the district has to go through and review the gender support plan and review our spots that are currently in place, then that's something that I will pursue. I am always open. I'm always willing to hear new perspectives. And I'm more than willing to listen to any individual in this room at any given point. However, like I said, that doesn't mean we're going to agree. I received the text message earlier calling some other individuals the minivan Taliban. That's unacceptable, and it's not cool. As somebody who was in the Marine Corps while the Taliban reigned, I can tell you there's not a person in this room that gets close to that level of brutality. I don't care what their political perspectives are in this room. So as we're going along tonight and in the future in regards to this policy and many, many others that we're going to go through, please keep that in mind. Hot rhetoric doesn't help anybody. Come to a school board meeting, offer your opinion, and you'll be heard. You won't be heard through text messages like that. And I resent being even remotely talked about like that in private or in public. Thank you.
So Ed, are you looking to continue discussion on this tonight, or do you want to have this be done in at the August meeting when the attorney can be present?
Yes, I mean, we want to have a working session with the policy committee so that we can come up to speed on the type of document that needs to be generated to support this decision when we need to make it. I don't see there's any reason for us to not have a policy in place so that now we're scrambling because we don't know how to address the issue. So this way, we'll go to policy. I don't think we'll get it all done on that date, but we'll get a good start and then we'll bring it back to the policy committee again. And we're ready to recommend it to the full board. It'll come and be here.
I think we should do that after we speak with the attorney. Yeah, just so we can do a question and answer session with them, and get all our questions answered.
So am I hearing you say that you would like to move the gender support protocol, which the board does not technically, we did not write that document. Are you looking to have that document become policy? Is that what you're?
I'm looking for a policy to deal with bathrooms and locker rooms.
Okay, so you're looking specifically at that.
So he would be looking to modify its 21 2 or something. I don't know. I don't have the numbers right now. But something like that. We do have a policy that's for restrooms and locker rooms, but it doesn't speak to this issue. Now, obviously, the support protocol doesn't read like a policy. I can close.
Correct.
So it would have to be words. I think that's what he's getting at.
If the board's agreeable, I think have the meeting with Tess on the 14th. Get guidance from her at that point, and then the board can make a legally informed decision regarding what to take to policy committee. Is that rewriting of the gender support plan, revising it, adopting it as an official handbook, which would make it a legal policy document, and or it may include also modifying the locker room and bathroom policy that we currently have and doing so. But I think what I've heard from the board is that you want to make sure that it's done, at least you know the ramifications from a legal standpoint, whatever decision is made, and that's where the board would be entitled to that private consultation with the attorney, as anything, could potentially result in that litigation. So schedule that on the 14th, then we'll know, the board could decide whether to go through the policy route. I think something would go through the policy route, either the transgender support plan or that bathroom locker room policy or both.
Yeah, personally, I would like to, I'd like the board to be able to review the gender support plan again. And potentially with advice from attorney, move toward making it part of either a handbook policy or something, but I'd like to move toward that direction, because you saw what happened this week or last week. Everything blew up. People are calling us, people are texting us, a lot of misinformation out there, and we're having to answer for a document that none of us had anything to do with. I was at that policy meeting in September of 2021. I have the notes from that meeting in front of me. I do have a few questions about the notes from that meeting, but specifically, where did the 10-day notification language come from? Because it's not my recollection that we talked about a 10-day notification, understanding though that that was being brought as a courtesy to the policy committee. We didn't really have the ability to do much with it at the time. So, but I know that parents are concerned about the 10-day notification. So I think we need to have further discussion on that.
And Julie, I agree with what you used. The policy committee being involved here, I think we should definitely address that. Question about from a legal standpoint, how does it work when we seek advice from counsel? Is that enclosed? And then, with everybody here that wants to know this, do we speak to them enclosed and then we provide minutes, or is it open, or how does that work when we speak to the attorney?
Yeah, so the closed session items would not be disclosable in the open session potentially, but boards sometimes when they have discussions in closed can go back out into open and do a report to the community on the next steps. You can show that, but there's very few items that can be discussed in a closed session, and I would have to go through this again with Tess. Instances that could potentially rise to a litigation or a case, or usually it's more of a case specific situation, would be a closed discussion. So I think, but it doesn't include the board from coming back into open, doing a report or a formal, which would be dealt with a regular session board meeting minutes. Does that answer or clarify? And anticipating that the board would want to talk to Tess on this from our prior discussions, I did forward her. She asked for the gender support plan document. She did advise on that, but that was at least 2 years ago. And she's done a lot of work so that she could review that and be prepared so that we have. efficient time.
Jason, I have a question. With our current administrative guidance, in place with the gender support stuff, or with the gender support plan, if an individual came forward and requested accommodations in their presentation, it said that, nobody would be forced to go to the bathroom or shower with an individual of the opposite biological sex. Okay? What would happen in those circumstances? Could you be a little more specific about it? Like, I mean, how would the administration handle that specifically?
Yeah, so we've had discussions related to this, and how the administration would handle that is, first, as you shared with, which I've shared previously, is that we would bring that notice to the board. The law in the Seventh Circuit or the rulings from the judges have been clear that that student would have a right to utilize that facility. The board at that point, because these are administrative protocols, would have the ability or the right to overrule the board if they wanted, or not the board, but the administrative protocols, and make a decision on that. But our plan, assuming that we move forward with granting that access, and the Circuit Court has ruled similar to McGuanago, similar to Kenosha, would be to notify the families of the potentially impacted students, again, protecting the privacy rights of that individual, yet making those families aware that that request and accommodation will be made, and that we would create a alternative location for those students if they did not want to be in that bathroom or that locker room during that changing time, so that we could accommodate those students to have a different area where they would be with their biological sex students if they go. But the court rulings, the case rulings under the Seventh Circuit has been that the students have a right to the facility to which they're gender expressing, if they and the parents. So we would notify families, here's the alternative location, and everybody would have that, decision to make at that time. They wanted their son or daughter to use that alternative location. Our family restrooms that we have right now all throughout the school district, which we put those in place back in 2016 when that initial guidance came out. We created all those, got Centra, are open to any student, and all students. So as of right now, any and all students have the right to a bathroom facility with complete privacy where there's nobody else. Did that answer your question, Devin?
It does. Adam's got a, looks like Adam's got a question. I have a follow-up afterwards, but I'll wait for it. See if you've got the same question.
Sometimes it happens. The legal issue, just so the community knows too, we live in a litigious society, and the lawsuits are, I know Jason protects us at every cost. It says the primary concern is protecting the students and the community. And this is something that the challenge that we as the board have are, eventual lawsuit in some way, shape, or form from someone. So knowing that this is a big issue, right? Do we as a board, or is there any way, can we put it to a community vote somehow that says, do we want to make this a policy after we consult legal? Is there a way to say, let's put this to the community and see how the community votes? Make it a policy versus not making a policy or something along those lines? Just an idea, just a thought, but I don't know how anybody else would feel about it, but.
I think that's what you're, elected for in those decisions. You could always serve it individuals and gather input if you wanted. If you wanted to tackle the topic with legal and seek an advisory input from the community to do a survey, the board could take that advice or not, but ultimately it's up to the school board that does that vote on policies and topics. I'm not aware of any referendum mechanism.
Just being a controversialist and have no problem voting or not voting as a board member, that's why I was elected. But it's something that's as controversial and obviously as big as an issue as this, I thought maybe we could segue it out, but I do think the survey would be helpful. I don't know, you guys would find a survey to help in this situation. I'm just trying to throw ideas at the wall.
Here's the option, my bad. I got a non-binding as a reference that they asked, or I've done, I'm not sure if that's something that you, and it would be something with that. It's basically just not binding referring, basically just give us a community-wide, like you said, survey only, not a, here's an email or here's a letter. It's a, on voting day, people will then be able to vote on it. I'm not sure if that's something that we could do, but I mean,
It's a good question for Tess. Yeah, my school.
Jason, I've got two questions for you. First one, is in relationship to, so we have, in the presentation you gave, it showed 22 individuals currently in the school district that have a generation support program, or plan, excuse me. The response to my question of, hey, in the event that somebody doesn't wish to be showering with that individual or go to the bathroom with that individual, we will accommodate those individuals, put them where they need to be. My question is if we have enough individuals that are saying that they're refusing to do that, do we have the accommodation to be able to handle 35 or 3,478 students to be able to put them in a separate bathroom comparatively? I mean, I don't want to get into it because I mean, we're literally looking at changing the entire policy and district-wide use of facilities for those 22 individuals. At what point do we look at it, or do we have to look at it the other direction as well? Make sure that we have enough facilities for all those people.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'd say working with Tess and seeing what those decisions are. At the high school, it's much easier to accommodate. We do have alternative locker rooms. We have lots of team locker rooms. So for a PE class in that circumstance in a locker room, that's very simple. As it comes to restroom facilities, we don't have, if everybody said, yep, I'm willing to use the family restroom, there'd be a long line the current structure or how the restrooms are set up. We don't have that in the family restrooms to accommodate, making that assumption. You know, there's 1,000 students at the high school, 750 at the high school.
The last question that I had was in relationship to what there is a major difference between what we're talking about here and what happened in Sun Prairie. Okay, however, it matters because it's still connected. There are other school districts that have dealt with the exact same thing that Sun Prairie has dealt with. What is it that we are doing as a school district to be able to prevent something like that from actually happening here in the school district?
In regards to, for those that aren't aware of what took place in Sun Prairie, and I'm somewhat familiar with that case, it was a male student that went into the female locker room. My understanding from what Sun Prairie can share, which is very minimal, because of FERPA and that protection of it being a student disciplinary issue, is that that student went in not in accordance with any accommodation or support plan. They just took it upon themselves and went in. We would have, you know, school district discipline and or referrals that we would handle and or address with those students that would violate that practice with, you know, obviously not having any prior authorization. I think it's a delicate situation for those individuals, although what I've heard from Sun Prairie is that they've handled that, they've addressed that, they've taken the appropriate disciplinary measures, whether that involves law enforcement or not, because of the nature of the exposure that took place. I don't know all the details and they can't really solve it. But it would be no different than any other circumstance where if we had a non-transgender male going into the girls' bathroom, we'd handle that and address that situation in the same like we would at this time, especially if there's nothing within that gender subordinate. But we don't have people posted at the bathroom. We have camera systems all throughout our school district, so we can go back and we can do those. We have a anonymous reporting. If somebody has a concern that that privacy was violated, they can use our safe outs And any student can report that anonymously. We can go back to the cameras. We don't have cameras in the bathroom, but we have cameras outside that can monitor anyone entering. Any other questions or discussion related to this? Then I'll tell you from the board that we do want to schedule a closed session with Tess on the 14th of August to discuss the legal ramifications at that time and have legal guidance from her. The board could discuss over them, you know, and openly in that closed session and get the advice, and the board can make whatever decision they want to. Just because a lawyer gives advice doesn't mean that the school board has to follow that. You can make whatever decisions you want. And I believe what I'm hearing from the board is that we'd like to have a return to open session where the board could do a report on next steps. On that page.
So what would that evening look like in terms of?
We'd have the regular agenda. I'd recommend doing the closed session at the end and then coming back in the convening the other thing. Doing that for reports from closed session.
So the closed session would be after the regular board meeting.
We could do the closed session before if you wanted. I could schedule her at 5 o'clock and do 5 to 6. Well,
I think it's gonna be a longer conversation.
okay. Then, and that's we're doing it after, it doesn't limit you. Does that seem to work for everyone?
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Anything else? Otherwise, we'll move on. I forgot to hand out the first session.
On those microphones, you really have to hold it right in front of your mouth for it to get captured.
All right, so minutes, regular session attached to your agenda, closed session, I just handed out. So I'll leave it into you. Whenever you're ready, I'll look for a motion for the minutes. Oh, did you not hear anything about the minutes? We're working on the minutes. So regular session minutes attached to your schedule. I'm sorry, I'm never really quiet though, as I know people have pointed out to me, including my wife, who has been on the speaker. But,
I move we approve the minutes of the July 17th, 2023 regular and closed session school board meeting as presented.
Second.
all right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the July 17th, 2023 regular and closed session school board meeting as presented. Roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes.
And Mr. Scarrow. Yes.
Motion carried. General and other fund bills, Mr. Sherman.
The general other fund bills covers checks 149, 741 to 149, 808. Wire transfers number 057 to 058, ACH check number 0016 to 0031, combined amount of $546,144.93. Then there was a memo providing some additional information on several of those.
Questions for Mr. Truman?
Mr. Truman, on
the advanced toolware. Could you just give a little bit more explanation on that? What is that?
Our technology department uses to, when there's either new student or staff member, there's a number of accounts in our network system that you get graded. So the system helps grade those for Google, for Skyward, for our network. So it facilitates the process as opposed to doing it.
On the critical response group, for having all of our school floor plans put into digital format, what kind of a secure, I mean, is that information secure? And is, for obvious reasons, we don't want the general public to have access to our school floor plans.
So you're asking what's the security?
Yeah, so how secure is that information? I mean, this is, I mean, I understand having it done for certain reasons, but who has that information? Who stores it? How secure is it?
That would be through our technology department. I probably would need to talk to them to get a little more detailed information.
Okay.
To be honest with you, Julia, I don't want to misspoke.
Sure. Sure, yeah. Yeah, I would like to know who is gonna have that information.
I believe that's referring to the cybersecurity aspect of securing the network and so forth.
What is AWSA? I saw that there was quite a membership.
AWSA is the Association of Wisconsin School Administrators.
Got it, okay. And then the Kendall Hunt Publishing, is that training for new math curriculum or what?
I believe that's a pilot program they're doing. I don't know.
Amy, it looks like Amy has an answer.
Might have some more information.
Okay, she can tell me when she comes back up. That's fine. I'm just curious. And that was all I had.
I got a couple for you though. Let's start with, I mean, I love Amy's Burger Town as much as the next person, but, why we give them $300? They're still cooking right now?
Yeah.
I'm home.
They're still operating. They have, I believe they have their portable units, so they're operating this summer.
Okay. So we held an event for them, or I mean, why is it that all of a sudden we give $300?
So when they do interviews or when we have a staff development, we bring the staff to do and cater a lunch.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Next question I had was, the Overwear Apparel Group. We've got a section that says school board. I'm confused on what that is.
Yeah. Go ahead, Julia.
Well, last year, at the end of last school board season,
Breathing on microphone. Sorry.
At the end of the last school board season, I can't remember when it was, but it was earlier this year. We were gifted by the school district, an item from Overwear Apparel of our choice, so we can just.
That was the swag.
Yeah, all right. I'm assuming that's what it is, because that's the only time.
You're correct.
Yeah.
Looks like that's all the questions. All right, looking for a motion to approve the general and fund bills.
I move to approve the general and other fund bills of July 24, 2023, check numbers 149741 to 149808, wire numbers 057 to 058, ACH number 0016 to 0031, and the combined amount of $546,144.93 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the general level fund bills of July 24th, 2023, checks number 149741 to 149808, wire number 057058, ACH number 0016 to 0031, with combined amount of $546,144.73 as presented. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Andrew?
Yes.
Mr. Gayheart? Mr. Gagnon?
Yes.
Mr. Ingersoll? Yes. Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Becker? Yes. Mr. Scarrow?
Motion carried. Approval of the board, we tabled this at the last meeting, so it's coming back for more discussion here on the academic studies. Mr. Schiller.
Yeah, the tabling decision was because we wanted to make sure that we had all board members who were present. Mrs. Ingersoll was excused, and I believe Mrs. Reckles at that meeting. So these are the academic standards each year by statute. We're required to approve these in July. And they are all hyperlinked. There are not any significant changes. Again, these are the overarching standards, which are the 10,000 foot level, that you're working towards. All school districts in Wisconsin were very unique in that the state does not mandate what the standards are. It's they have them, they base the forward exam off of those in the testing suite, but each individual school district has that autonomy to choose and approve what standards they want to follow and adhere to. I'll leave it at that and turn over to if there are any questions.
Jason, are we allowed to single out one thing, like approve the entire, all the standards except for one thing, or do we have to blanket approve everything at the same time?
You could make a motion that would exclude a certain curriculum area if you didn't, or standards, if you didn't want to approve those. By statute, we're required to approve the standards, but I don't know if the statute specifies or gets to that level of specificity that every single subject area. And I don't think there's really any consequences if the board chose not to approve a certain curriculum area. I just haven't, experienced that, but.
Well, based on your answer, I would like to make a motion to approve the standards except for the health standards. Because,
I would second that if it's a motion.
Okay, I guess discussion, maybe it'd be good to give a rationale and if there's any proposal of different standards you want to follow, or if you just felt they weren't relevant for us to follow those because we already had a approved human growth. I don't know, sure.
yeah, so as I looked at the health standards, I have some concerns. Some of the standards that are included in there. And then as I compared it to, I have it pulled up. The document that we have that is, our own teaching.
Developed by the ad hoc committee and our scope and sequence.
Yes. That only addresses 4th grade and up, but yet these health standards address K through 12. I'm a little concerned by some of the standards that are listed in the, especially the kindergarten through 2nd grade things, and I would like to kind of take a look at that more closely because our current document doesn't address those younger grades. And I think I would like to see that document address the lower grades, but I'm concerned with this current health standards and some of the things that they address.
All right, so our current document in what you're referring to is the human growth and development standards. And so we don't start that process until 4th grade.
Correct.
But so what I'm hearing from your motion is that you would like to approve all the other standards and then direct us to develop our own local health standards.
Yes.
It may take us, so long as the board's comfortable, it would take us this academic year to work on those developments.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that the standards that Wisconsin Health Standards that are linked here addresses K through 12, and we don't currently address K through 12.
Not on human growth and development.
Right. So, I'd like to have that more clearly defined, because if we were to adopt the Wisconsin Health Standards that's linked here, for our K through second graders or even third graders, I would have a problem with some of those things.
Just like to say, and again, I don't have that document in front of me. We do embed the health standards in our program. K2.
Okay. Then, yeah, that's another reason why I have a problem with.
That can be to look at the national standards then versus Wisconsin standards. Okay, we have to eventually adopt a set of standards.
Sure, I understand that.
For those that couldn't hear what Amy said, we do utilize the health standards in our PE classes at the earlier childhood levels, and just reiterating that we would have to adopt or create our own standards, which we have that.
Right, so just to clarify that, Amy, you did say that we had to adopt a set of standards, correct? At some point, we have to adopt a set of standards.
Or as Jason indicated, right, district standards.
Right.
Or our own.
Correct.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, for example, we don't use, we use the next generation science standards for science, which is more of a nationally developed. Wisconsin has come out with Wisconsin standards, but they're based off of the next generation science standards. All of our curriculum and work is designed at that. So it can't be as simple as adopting a different set of standards that the board's comfortable with, or it can be as simple as going back and taking the Wisconsin health standards, reviewing that, striking the components that the board feels for our local level aren't appropriate to teach at the K through 3 level, and calling them the Elkhorn health standards.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. The health standards for grades pre-K through second grade. It describes, one of the learning priorities is to list ways to prevent communicable disease. I'm sorry, but pre-K through second graders should not know anything about communicable diseases.
Well, that's like teaching them how to wash their hands.
Okay, okay, but that
Don't
also.
share your toothbrushes, don't share your hat, so you don't get lice to each other.
Okay, I'm fine with those things, but I'd like to more clearly define what that means.
Heather, you have a comment? Heather.
I was just gonna comment that communicable disease was things that you just alluded to. Don't share toothbrushes, don't share your brushes, things like that at that younger age level. We're not talking about STDs or STIs.
I read that same way, Julia, and Tyler, thanks. That makes a lot more sense. And watching versus what we read it as very different. But I do agree with you that we should clearly define this.
I'd like to.
Yeah, that's clearly defined. No miscommunication, nothing. 100% with it.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? There's a motion and second. Do you want to go ahead and call for the vote? Oh, hold on. We sorry about Mr. We do have a motion and a second, correct? Just double check.
Yeah, got one.
All right, go ahead and call them.
Andre? Virginia? Mr. Gagnon?
Yes.
Mr. Ingersoll? Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mr. Breckland?
Yes.
Mr.
Okay, motion carried. So we'll come back and guess we'll do some more work there. Director's report.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Amy G, our Director of Curriculum Instruction at the kindergarten through 5th grade level. and she has some special guests, and I can't sing the praises enough of these special guests. Carrie Brown, Michelle Schaaf, and Cindy Reber are phenomenal educators, and are going to speak to our reading program, which we did hear in the public comment. I think there's also misunderstanding related to reading, what that looks like. There was a recent legislation passed as well, and I'll be able to speak to that. So I'm going to turn the time over to them. And I'm just leaving to grab some water. I'm not walking out because you're speaking.
Good evening, everyone. I'm excited because usually when we are in our normal school board room, Mr. Chadlock controls the advancement of the slide, but tonight we will be in charge of the advancement of the slide, so that's wonderful. All right, as Jason mentioned, my name is Amy G. I'm the K-5 Director of Instruction, which means that I get to work extremely closely with our 3 elementary schools. A little bit about me is I am now starting my 33rd year in education. I was a primary education teacher, mainly in 2nd grade with the Waterford Graded School District for 14 years. Then moved on to do gifted and talented education there for an additional 9. I've come here to the Elkhorn School District. My children have gone through this district. Truth be told, I too have gone through this school district, as have many generations of my family. I'm very passionate about the work we do here, having had my own children move through the district. And I think I always will lead with the heart of a teacher as well as a parent. But at this point in time, my title is Director of K-5 Instruction. I am truly blessed to work with some of the most amazing classroom teachers in the Elkhorn School District, and we're very excited to be here tonight. So we are going to provide an update on our reading, writing, and phonics program, sometimes known as our ELA program, to those of you who are sticking it out tonight and would like to learn more about that. So thank you. I also want to thank our school board because they are the ones who initiated tonight's program, just requesting an update on our ELA implementation. Again, a shout out not only to our presenters who are here tonight, but to our entire K-5 group of educators. That includes our classroom teachers, it includes our paraprofessionals, our special education staff, our administrators, our reading specialists, and instructional coaches who also lead on this ELA initiative every single day. And to our parents, family members, community members here tonight, we enjoy working in collaboration with you. We know that, teaching your child how to read is something you entrust us with. We feel that, we have earned that trust, but it's always good to take a deeper look at what's happening, how that may be impacting our students here in the district. We appreciate the support you provide at home and in helping to instill not only those foundational skills, but in helping your children love to read as well. So it's a team effort here in the Elkhorn School District. All right, so moving forward with our program tonight, the goal is to provide the school board, our families, an overview of our K-5 ELA program. And I just put the question out there. Are we on track at this time with the curriculum resources we are using at the K-5 level? To answer that question, we're going to dive directly into our K-5 reading data. We will share that information very openly. We will then talk about some terminology, like if we refer to our district's program as a responsive literacy program, what does that mean? What is the workshop model of instruction? These are some buzzwords out there. We'll talk about the factors that have guided our ELA implementation over the last 8 years. We'll talk about where we are at on that timeline process. We will overview those resources as we go, and our classroom teachers who directly use those resources will be sharing that information. And then finally, we'll provide an update because yes, the state, as of the end of last week, just passed some new mandates and a new assembly bill that will impact what is going to be happening moving forward in our district, as well as all districts across the state in the area of reading. All right, so what does our elementary reading data tell us about the growth of our students? Let's begin with our why. And is what we're doing effective? So we have a number of snapshots we're going to share with you tonight. As many of you are aware, we use the MAP assessment tool to take a look at how are our students progressing in reading. This is an assessment tool that is computer-based and it's used in grades K through 8 in the district. Again, we're zeroing in on that elementary picture tonight. Oftentimes we look at what was performance pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. There's also been a lot of news out there in regards to what has academic loss looked like for students across our nation. You can look at the NAEP report, you can look at such as the report which you hear by NWEA. The NWEA report zeroed in on Wisconsin, and they have found that on average, students have lost about, their scores have dropped, their achievement scores about 5% as a result of COVID, that disruption of learning. So we went back and looked at our winter 2020 MAP snapshot. That was the last time that MAP assessment was given prior to schools shutting down spring of 2021. And then we also looked, or spring of 2020, and then we looked at our most recent spring of 22-23 snapshot. People, you're welcome to draw those conclusions. I'm just pointing out that our kindergarten data has remained steady. We see an actual uptick in our students' achievement as we were predicting loss at this time, based on different research reports. The only area where we're seeing a little bit of an anomaly has to do with our grade 1 in this particular snapshot. But other than that, we're obviously very pleased to see not only maintaining scores, but a steady increase at most of our grade levels. But again, that's one snapshot. So let's take a look at a different assessment we utilize, which is some parents may be familiar with their child saying, I did a running record today. A running record gives us a different look at a child and how they are able to read. They sit one-on-one with the teacher. They're reading texts that is at their instructional to independent level, so we can see how they are doing at mastering different grade level text. We are able to assess, because they're reading aloud to us, their ability to decode, their fluency, as well as then we ask follow-up questions to gauge comprehension of that text. So again, the 18-19 information picture here is pre-COVID. You'll see that we don't have summary data for 19-20, and then we moved ahead in the following years post-COVID. That gives you an idea of, if we again zero in at grade 1 here, you'll see that there was in fact loss as we came back. We were looking at, wow, look at how our K-1-2 students were impacted by that kind of hiccup in education. Even though we came back face to face, we had some ground to cover there. You'll see that since then we have really moved ahead. This first grade snapshot is much different. And again, we see trends that we feel are very positive, and that we aren't seeing extreme loss in how our students are performing. If we move on now to another snapshot, if we are going to compare, as a parent, I want to know, well, how does this look in comparison to other school districts? There's one tool that we can lean into to take a picture of that, and that would be the forward data. That is the stage assessment that's given in the spring of the year. We're zeroing in on grades 3 through 5. And you'll see that what we did was we took a look at area school districts next to us. We looked at their elementary data, which meant we didn't go just based on the school report card score that district earned. We drilled down to each individual elementary school. You'll see those grades are indicated there. And then we found the average for the school district in both achievement and growth. And the research we were able to do, we also inquired, checked website, possibly made some phone calls into directors there to find out what are some of the tools you're using. You'll see our information pulled together here, where the Elkhorn district is very strong in that area of achievement in comparison to our neighbors, as well as growth. As some of you may be aware, as achievement continues to climb, it's a little bit harder to get everyone also growing to an even higher level, but our growth score is also rather strong in comparison to those other area districts. Another takeaway is you'll see that all of our neighbors in surrounding areas are using some different materials as well. And, it's not our job to cast judgment or look at what they're using. It was just a point to say, here's where other districts are grounded. And limited information was also available on those websites, so we pulled what we could. All right, so that is a snapshot of what's happening in that area. Then I decided to take a deeper look at if we're going to benchmark with what the best elementary schools here in Wisconsin are doing, what might that look like? So we did a deep dive with the 21 elementary schools who in the last 3 years were awarded at that national level the blue ribbon for excellence. What we did was all schools going through that process have to fill out a very lengthy application, but it's the same application, so you can read deeply to find out, you know, what is it that's happening in their ELA program, what resources are they using, what do they contribute to their success. And in looking at those 21 applications, some of the common things we found was that 12 of those 21 sites are using what's considered a workshop model, in which there is that whole group instruction, that gradual release of the teachers modeling, the class does together, and then students do on their own. The workshop model provides for a lot of small group or one-to-one instruction as well. And we feel that's been very pivotal in our student growth. Explicit phonics programs were being utilized across the board. The units of study was also being implemented in 8 of those 21 districts. And some of those districts also talked about the Heggerty Phonemic Awareness Program. You'll see then when we looked at what were some of those basal series that were also being implemented, the commonality was 2 of those districts out of the 21 utilized journeys. These are some of these others that were utilized. And there was just a few districts that were rather vague in tools they were using, including build your own curriculum. So we pulled what we could from there. The asterisk in that top row indicates where our elementary schools are also using those tools. So that first row is where we have commonality with the 21 schools that have been awarded that blue ribbon. Moving from there, a spring survey comes out every year where we reach out to our families to find out, you know, how do you feel we're doing? How do you feel your child is doing with regards to the educational experience they're receiving? So here's a snapshot from this spring's 2023 family survey. This went out to all families in May. We then drilled down to families who had a child attending Jackson, Tibbetts, or Westside. They also could have had students at the middle and high school level, but they at least had to have some connection at that elementary level. One of the prompts was the district is meeting our students' needs in reading. Based on the hundreds of parents that responded, you'll see that 92% of our families this spring felt that we were on point and that we were meeting their child's needs. We then had 8% with just 3% strongly disagreeing with that statement. And then in regards to writing, similar question, are we meeting students' needs in writing? And there is the data that we were able to draw from our families who completed that survey. For our school board, feel free to flag us down, ask questions as we go. For community members, if you have questions, please hold those. If you feel something isn't answered by the time we finish this evening, we will meet down front and answer those questions one-to-one. I'm happy to do that. All right, so as I'm seeing, there's no question regarding the data we have pulled together, trying to offer a complete snapshot from all viewpoints. We're now going to move on to just kind of take away at some of our to-dos on our list this evening, just to provide a comprehensive summary of where we're at. So what exactly is a responsive literacy program? We utilize this phrase, responsive literacy, because we feel we're providing students and our teachers with a variety of learning resources that serve different instructional purposes. And here are all of the things that we are trying to support. If we dive into those Wisconsin standards or the Common Core standards in regards to ELA, you'll see that these are all of the things that need to be part of a comprehensive literacy program. We tonight are going to highlight what are some of the different tools we use. We refer to it as responsive because while we pull together a scope and sequence of how do we use these tools in all of the grade levels, we also rely on the teacher looking carefully at their data to know which students may need more of something and perhaps less of something, so that we can really move all of our students on an individual basis. The workshop model goes hand in hand with this, in that we have, some parents aren't aware, but we have 120 minutes of ELA instruction provided daily in grades K-5. Typically, that's broken down with 60 minutes to address reading and 60 minutes to address writing. And typically, we are grouping some of that phonics work in with our writers workshop. We're also grouping some shared reading activity, whole group instruction, small group instruction, and an interactive read aloud piece with our reading minutes. There's a little model here as we work with our new young teachers of how that breaks down. We'll talk a little bit more about that workshop model later on, but it basically begins with a whole group lesson where we're really hitting hard on those specific reading standards. Then we move into that small group targeted instruction in a number of ways. And then we pull back together at the conclusion of that time to bring the whole group back together to summarize what we've been working on that day in the classroom for both reading and writing. I think a picture tells the story here better. You'll see a snapshot of what does a whole group lesson look like with that direct instruction piece. You'll see some kindergartners gathered around the table there, working on phonics, letter ID, because we have it written in front of them there. You'll see partner reading at our younger grades, maybe used for a period of time as students may be working on fluency. Here you may see a book circle or a literacy circle going on as students are on task, looking for certain, say, artifacts within those books. There you can see a student who has worked one-to-one. I think that has to do with some animal research that they are doing with nonfiction text. I also want to stress that in addition to those 120 minutes devoted to our ELA program, our elementary schools have a block of time called WIN, What I Need, which is where we address the needs of all learners through our multi-level systems of support. What that means is we will have students that are at grade level and will continue to work on different skills right at that grade level. We take time then to work on enrichment for our, say, advanced students, as well as some teaching opportunities for our students who may be struggling with those grade level concepts. And as Jason mentioned earlier in the annual report, we also have been recognized by the state of Wisconsin for having that tiered system in place, at also the silver and gold level for having that solid academic support there for our students at all levels. You might say, well, what's guiding the work of what you do in the district? As we shared, our student data is a big piece of that. The standards adopted by our school board also drive that work, as well as research, including most recently the information coming on the science of reading. We're going to, this is, believe me, one slide on standards. We can all consider ourselves lucky tonight, right? So we have one standard. Those standards are linked here also if anyone wants to dig deeper. In May of 2020 is when the Wisconsin rolled out their new ELA standards, which increased the rigor of what we needed to see students doing in the area of reading. Now, if you take a look at your calendar in May of 2020, we had just gone virtual and we were working with families to get online with us and to assist us in this instructional process. But coming down the pipe were also all these standards. Here we are concerned about what losses will our students face, how to remediate that, and how are we going to keep moving ahead to implement this new set of standards. The timing was a lot for all of us as educators to take on, but I believe we worked through that. You'll see that we do align our daily instruction in reading and writing so students meet or exceed those grade level benchmarks. Oftentimes we break them down into digestible essential skills that if we build on those blocks, students will be able to master those standards. And you'll see how we kind of check off those essential skills in just a minute. I have just a couple slides because again, we could be here all evening talking about the science of reading. And I believe what we're finding is there is no one expert on this topic, but that it's important to really dig deeply and listen to the viewpoints of many people who are presently doing the research when it comes to the science of reading. The science of reading has really taken flight in that, educators, researchers, people in the area of neuroscience and linguistics, child psychologists, all the way to even politicians, different podcasters, people who are researching what other people are saying. You know, it's all coming together, and it is a lot to get through in understanding what truly matters when it comes to the instruction of reading. What's exciting is this topic has gained attention once again, and it's making us as practitioners really reflect on what we're doing, and that's always a good thing. Keep in mind that we cannot go anywhere and find the curriculum called Science of Reading. This is just research. There is not one canned program out there that is the silver bullet, the answer to this is what you all need to do. If there was, I have a feeling we would all be moving into that. But there is not, and instead what we do is we use that research to guide the selection of what we're doing, to make changes within the classroom. Sometimes it is not even about going out and buying a different program. It's about changing strategies and protocols in our instruction. What is clear in the Science of Reading are these are some of those things that will matter the most. These are kind of those big six as far as what students need to develop. Our teachers are going to talk a little bit more. There's a lot of jargon up here. We'll define it briefly in just a minute, but just know that these are things that are definitely on our radar that we have been working to ensure is being covered in our elementary ELA program. Ongoing professional development has been a critical part of our ELA implementation. We have reading specialists who not only work with our students, but our reading specialists and instructional coaches work closely with our classroom teachers. Our teachers are very open to that feedback. What am I doing well, and what are some changes I can make? We sit down and look at data very openly. Where are we seeing success, and where do we need to make pivots, and what type of instructional changes need to go with those pivots? Last summer, we had over 40 elementary educators come in to attend a webinar that was sponsored by SUSA 6 with the author Jan Bergmans. She is one of the researchers in the area of the Science of Reading. She has written the book Shifting the Balance, which really brings to light what are those changes that we should start to see in the elementary classroom. All of our K-2 teachers and administrators have gone through this extensive book study, and very slowly and methodically we have put some changes in place. The release of the 3.5 through 6th edition is coming this fall, and we will repeat that book study with our older teachers as well. We also do look at other additional sources for research information, including ed reports, including that What Works Clearinghouse, especially when we're choosing materials for our multi-level systems of support. We look at those high-performing districts, and we work closely with CISA 6 and the DPI to stay on top of those changes that are coming our way, and those trends that we feel aren't just trends, but perhaps are some strategies to be adapting here in our district. I just want to say, we are aware that there are some reviews out there, particularly with the units of study, also known as the Teachers College Reading and Writing Program. Depending on the year that we're looking to evaluate the Fontes and Pinnell program, there could be concerns raised there by different reviewers. Long before some of this started to spread out, be that through podcasts, be that through different articles being read, we have made some changes into how specific resources are utilized in the district. We do see strength in a number of these, but we have also seen where they have fallen a bit short and have purchased additional materials to be used in harmony with those. So even before this was coming to our attention, we saw great strength in the units program in many ways, and we'll highlight that tonight. We also saw, you know what, this isn't really moving our students in this area, therefore we're going to also layer on this. All right, so who exactly has been involved in this work? We've listed many of the stakeholders there. This has been one of those committees that people signed up for, and it hasn't just, it's a cycle that just keeps going. They've never gotten off this committee, and we'll soon be back at it again. Membership may change as teachers retire, and educators may shift to a different district, but we have remained strong in our commitment to continually evaluate what's happening. This hasn't been a one-time adoption and we've just let it ride. We have a lot of people very excited about this work and therefore we continue to revisit and discuss each and every year. When we started this work in 2014, 2016, this committee came together. At that point in time, reading instruction, and I don't know if any of us had students, I think mine were still at the they were moving into the middle and high school at that point. But there was a lot of disjointed instruction that happens after a curriculum review runs into its 10th, 11th, 12th year. The fidelity of such a program may dissipate a little bit and we need to take a close look at that. So getting engaging instruction consistent across 3 different elementary campuses was one of the first things we needed to do. The Common Core state standards had been released and the rigor and expectation for our young leaders was laid out, and we needed to do something different in order for those students to achieve, in order for them to do well on the forward exam or to measure that, and in order to know that we were on point with what we were doing. We then knew that in order for instruction to be effective, we needed to carve out time for small group targeted instruction. We needed a model of instruction that would allow for that. We did not want a one-size-fits-all for the whole 60 minutes of instruction. And it was time to make sure our reading and writing were working together for our students. As part of this, we looked at the strengths of what was happening and we identified those concerns with the hodgepodge of materials that were presently in place. We looked at many different resources that included HMH Journeys, the McGraw-Hill Wonders program at the time. We also looked at the units of study put out by the Teachers College. We then went and visited various high-performing school districts to see those programs in action. As you know, it's one thing to listen to a vendor. It's one thing to go into those classrooms and see what's happening. One of the districts we benchmarked at that time was the Mequon-Thiensville School District. They too were coming on board with Abbott Elementary. There were some commonalities there, and we really liked how we could support the work of Abbott Elementary and that deep emphasis on reading and writing, also with the units of study, and how this would kind of really come together for our elementary students. We then came back, presented to the school board at that time, made some recommendations regarding materials, and then we developed our professional development plan. This was probably the deepest professional development ever done at the elementary level, where we had consultants come in. We conducted fishbowls where we would go in and observe each other instructing. We would get feedback on how we were instructing. We had other instructors come in and model lessons for us. We were deeply reflective each step of the way. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to hand this over to our educators who are here tonight. They're going to introduce themselves and they're going to walk us through simultaneously, what did we implement? What did that tool look like? And how is that working in our classrooms today? Right, so I'm going to tap out and thank you to Michelle Shaw, who is going to speak to the
Evening, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. This is a long meeting. I'm sure we have some meeting fatigue by about now. My name is Michelle Shaw. I just completed my 31st year at Chivett School, 24 years as a second grade teacher, and in the last 7 years, I am going to read my comments this evening from the script because I am prone to go off on a tangent. Don't worry, it's not 8 pages double-spaced, both sides. When the district adopted the units of study that Mrs. G and the workshop model as a resource to teach our curriculum, the workshop model that Mrs. G cited earlier in the presentation was a new method of delivering instruction for many of our staff. Learning how to use it and researching the daily lessons that were delivered by each of our classroom teachers who teach reading was challenging work, but we were and remain committed because we knew it was the right work to move our program and our students forward. Our teachers have been devoted to this work, not just as individual teachers, but also as grade level teams within each building and as grade levels across the district. We have devoted professional development time to fine-tuning where we want units to fall within the school year, what lessons to spread out over multiple days, and what lessons to omit. All of our English language arts teachers have had voice and choice in this work. Much work has also been done in what we call vertical teamwork. By that, I mean reaching down to the grade below and the grade above to be sure that the lessons that we are providing connect, that our instruction is picking up where the last grade left off, and providing scaffolding for the next grade. The work that we have done with English Language Arts over the past 7 years has been some of the most complex, comprehensive, and collaborative work we've done as staff members. The workshop model allows teachers to differentiate instruction. Differentiating instruction can be thought of as being prescriptive or responsive to what each student needs. After beginning with an engaging mini lesson focused on a scalar strategy using a high-quality mentor text, teachers meet individual needs by meeting in small groups to instruct at common levels or around common goals, conferring with and coaching individual students, meeting with groups of students that are researching a common topic, or meeting with groups of students who are reading a common text. While teachers are meeting with groups or individuals, the rest of our students are independently reading books of their choice at their level. Many students look forward to this independent reading time daily. Units of study topics vary by grade level. Each grade level offers students rich opportunities with fiction and nonfiction. These units build upon skills from the previous grade level. Each grade level also has their own special units, like reading superpowers in kindergarten, word detectives in grade 1, becoming nonfiction experts in grade 2, learning how to read a mystery in grade 3, researching the American Revolution and reading historical fiction in grade 4, and analyzing theme in book clubs in grade 5. Units of study content is sequential, uses explicit instruction, and includes multiple opportunities for students to practice what they've been taught and to practice reading. Sequential explicit instruction with opportunities for practice are all principal practices endorsed by Science of Reading Research. The scope and sequence of the units of study has been the most complete kindergarten through 5th grade ELA sequence that I've been part of during my tenure at Elkhorn Area School District. Our students are becoming true sustained readers who are working toward the overarching goal of all reading, which is deriving meaning from printed material. Our youngest readers are grounded in foundational skills and practice. Our middle grade students begin to put the pieces of real reading together with increasingly complex test and comprehension skills. And our fourth and fifth graders begin reading in the content areas, readying them for content reading in middle school and beyond. A few years ago, I asked some grades 3 through 5 students what they thought of Readers Workshop. I'd like to close with some of those comments now. I'm reading more and I'm reading longer now. I learned I really like historical fiction. When I'm in a book club, I get to hear others' opinions about the same book we're all reading. I like choosing my own books and having many books to choose from. I loved all the read-alouds my teacher used as mentor texts, and I learned about many different genres of books. Just would like to close by thanking you for your time and your dedication to our students.
Good evening, for those of you still here. My name is Carrie Brown, and I've had the privilege of teaching at Westside in both kindergarten and 2nd grade. My 2 children both attend the Elkhorn Area School District and have been here since the 4K grade level. In my time at EASD, I have served on multiple curriculum committees district-wide, including ELA, social studies, and 2 rounds of math. I serve on the leadership team at Westside, and the leadership team spends many hours working on aligning our standards with our data to the high-quality resources our district provides. As Michelle spoke of the units of study, as we began to dive into those units of study across all grade levels, the units continually outline the importance of implementing both shared and interactive reading lessons into our daily literacy instruction. For the 2018 school year, we were gratefully provided with shared and interactive reading resources. And I would like to take a moment to just kind of explain these resources, how they're different, and what it looks like in a classroom. Shared reading provides a consistent weekly structure that allows teachers to implement multiple literacy skills. Teachers select one story in the form of a big book. I brought one with. That teaches students to read this entire book over the course of the week. Different skills are added each day for the students to practice. By using these techniques within the shared reading program, teachers empower students to become confident, independent readers as they practice important reading behaviors in a safe, risk-free environment. Interactive reading, the second strategy focused on teaching reading the entire, or sorry, the teacher teaching the entire, reading the entire story, pausing throughout to encourage peer discussion. Interactive reading deepens comprehension through vocabulary instruction, inferring, predicting, making connections, and identifying the message or theme of a story. So basically the difference between those two programs is teacher-led comprehension versus whole group engagement, encouraging all students to feel safe in their journey of reading. The final resource that I'm here to discuss is our Haggerty Phonemic Awareness curriculum that was provided to all K-2 teachers in 2019. This flip book, and just to give you a little background, because I am an early childhood educator and many people don't really understand what phonemic awareness is. Phonemic awareness is the ability to hear and manipulate sounds in spoken words. This is not an activity that uses print or visuals. It's an auditory skill. It is important to understand that phonemic awareness, especially in early childhood, is an essential component of early literacy instruction. The ability or inability for students to hear or manipulate sounds can be an early predictor of reading successes and or struggles. This resource has been embedded into our daily literacy instruction as the teacher leads lessons that may include concepts such as rhyming, syllables, isolating a beginning, medial, or ending sound, things like compound words, deleting or adding sounds, segmenting words, and so much more. Students are actively engaged as hand motions are used to manipulate the sounds within the different skill sets. As I wrap up my part of the presentation, it is really important to note that when COVID required teachers to pivot, these resources provided by the district were a lifesaver. We were able to implement this type of instruction just as we would in a classroom, even though we were forced to go virtual, which was a new experience for all. I thank you not only for your time tonight, but your continued support of the dedication, work, and time all teachers have put into making EASD's early literacy instruction a successful program.
Materials that Carrie Brown was referring to, just some little snapshots here where our classroom teachers are providing these kids. What's nice is they have some flexibility as to which of those shared read alouds are used in a particular week, or which of the interactive read aloud theme sets are used. So while we have those resources available, they have a little bit of flexibility of which one may fit best with, say, what's happening in science that week, or other subject areas as well. As Carrie mentioned, I have the little COVID creature there on the side to just mention that it was at this point that we did need to pull over at the end of that 2020 school year and think deeply about, okay, what are we going to do? We know some of these tools were very effective online with our students. The area of phonics was perhaps one that didn't transfer as well with online instruction, especially for our younger students. It was at this time that we determined we really need to zero in on where are our students at instructionally when they return to us in the fall. We dug deeply into the standards-based report cards. What was amazing is our educators also did this work completely online and virtually, meeting weekly to start pulling together a standards-based report card so that when we returned in the fall, our families would know skill level, skill by skill, where their child was at, where were those deficits, and what are we going to do? We knew we needed to act in unity with our families. So it was at that point that the elementary went to a standards-based report card, and we also zeroed in on specific reading readiness assessments to drill down to all of those sub-skills, those foundational skills that we know have to be in place for students to succeed as readers. We'll share a little bit more about that in a minute, but I'm now going to hand it over to Cindy Reberg, who's going to pick up where we left off with that implementation of a strong phonics program then beginning in 2021. Thanks, Cindy.
right? So I'm sort of vertically challenged, so I'm sorry if you can't see me. My name is Cindy Reberg. I've taught for Alcorn School District for 22 years now. It sounds like I'm pretty old then, I guess. I have two sons that attend, or have attended the school district. One has graduated and one will graduate next year, and have loved going to Alcorn schools. I have worked on countless curriculum committees because I actually love doing curriculum work. My passion is really rooted in teaching reading and writing to young children, so I am in the right place. Talking more about the science of reading a little bit, we know that a strong foundation has to be built and in place for our students to experience success. And as I just talked about, was tough during COVID, but I think we are full swing again. With that, our word study program has enhanced the foundational skill development of our young readers. And in turn, our students are building confidence in their ability to become a reader. And that's really powerful. Their confidence is super important to that process. A few examples of word study in the first grade classroom. Just hold a few items up as well. We use ABC maps to make and break words. Just having that tactile involvement for kids really helps. We also use analogy charts. Some of you might know them as T charts. And those analogy maps help us to write and sort words according to their spelling pattern. We also use sound boxes on the other side. Sometimes we do this both in one activity frame. And those are just to segment words to hear the individual sounds. So kind of just help them break that apart. At the early K2 level, we have worked to make this a very hands-on program, moving away from just using the worksheets and moving along to those tactile activities, which have students manipulating the letters as they go with the ABC maps. As students that progress to third and fifth grade, or third, fourth, and fifth grade, the focus of our finance program turns to that of more of a word study program, in that the focus shifts to roots and stems, and they learn the meanings of those, and then that helps deepen their vocabulary development. Or so I'm told, because I don't go down that hallway to instruct very much. The Phonics and Phonics program is the first time a structured K-5 program has been implemented in the district. And I think, teachers would have about it. It's a great program, and it was well put together. Shifting now to support all levels of readers in the classroom, I'd like to briefly share a little bit about our guided reading resources. Just kind of holding it up, but we have been teaching guided reading since as long as I can remember. But these specific Fountas and Pinnell resources were sort of a lifesaver. I think that the guides are so well put together that they've increased the rigor and the diversity of our guided reading books and our lessons, as they include ideas and suggestions on how to introduce a text, discuss and revisit the text, highlight ways to incorporate phonics and word work, and even provide suggestions for incorporating writing instruction along the way. Experienced teachers can do this really well, but I know that when people come in the door, new hires, balancing all of these different tools can be really cumbersome, I'm sure. And I've mentored quite a few people that that balance can be difficult. So I think these resources have just really put some of that at ease and have allowed them to flourish in other ways that maybe we didn't have the opportunity before. I've had the opportunity to do some action research in my classroom using the Decodable books this year, which is the last thing here. And on the slide that you see, this resource is structured in such a user-friendly way that encapsulates a strong focus on enhancing just that decoding skill. So kids don't necessarily rely on maybe knowing sight words. They're really trying to break down those words into sounds. And they love them. I would say they love the characters. We actually read books that introduce characters, which they just love as well. So they kind of get to know those before they even start their own reading. They do some amazing adventures in there. They're pretty entertaining even for myself. They are set up as chapter books, which was ingenious because that's a confidence boost from the very start. Our kids actually think that they're, I suppose, equivalent to like a PhD for an adult when they start a chapter book. So they feel pretty cool about that. We use Reader's Workshop model. Let's see if we can go to the next one. There we go. So I know that this was already spoke about, so I'm not going to share too much, but you see the Reader's Workshop model come up again here. And really for us in the classroom, we teach a mini lesson. We want the students to then incorporate whatever skills are taught in that mini lesson when they start to independently read and partner read. And then that gives us time to go back with other students, small subsets of students, and do that small reading group and guided reading strategy groups, all of that great stuff that needs to happen on a more individualized level. And we can dig deeper into what that student needs or that subgroup of students need. And then we can also use those word work activities in the classroom to enhance their ability to build and manipulate those words. Confirm is another really valuable tool that teachers use that focus on listening to a student read from a text at their level for a brief period of time, and then the teacher proceeds to have a short strategic conversation with the student that would both highlight a positive about what they're doing really well as a reader, and then creating a goal together to help them grow. So it's kind of a glow and grow. Educators would know that as, what are we glowing with and what should we grow with? So we are just thankful, honestly, as educators here at Elkhorn, to have an extensive classroom library as well, which you see pictures here at the bottom. Students love self-selecting books that they can take home on a daily basis, also put in their book bins. They love to book shop. It's almost as fun as going to Walmart, I'm sure, for all of you, or even better. So it just helps students stay engaged in their reading while they lead targeted small group lessons. So what we do, right, like as teachers, lead our small group lessons, because we just have to meet all of those diverse learning needs. Lastly, I'm just truly grateful for the opportunity to talk here tonight and educate everybody, hopefully, about some of the different elements of our reading program, and that really, I think all those components come together to foster a true love of reading in our students. And I do see it each and every day in the classroom, and I'm just glad to be part of that important work. So thanks for being here tonight.
To respect the amount of time that we have taken, you can tell we're very impassioned about the topic and the work that we're doing. I'm going to touch very quickly on some final slides. As a parent, I might be wondering, okay, that's great. You have a lot of tools, like you guys have a lot of stuff, right? And obviously we have explained the intention behind each one, how we're supporting the standards with them. How we pull this all together goes back to those professional learning communities, our grade level teams, all the second grade teachers, all the first grade teachers across 3 of our elementary sites coming together to determine how will these things function together. They work in tandem to put together our scope and sequence calendars for the year. You'll see up at the top, we have listed all of those resources. This would be like a snapshot of first grade in October, where we would like to be in moving through, say, the units of study and reading, what would be the shared reading books that sequentially come next. But because our teachers share those boxes, I might have one book one week, Mr. Truman might have a different book, and we're rotating those. We then look at the interactive read alouds. It says link to the kit guide. Our teachers have access to 8 to 10 different themes each trimester that they're working through. And again, a theme that I have in mind might be different. Another teacher may be working on a theme, and then we're trading those books out at the end of the week. Haggerty, which some of you have had a chance to look at the book, are we on? The phonics scope and sequence is also snapshotted there. That's probably our most detailed one. There are a lot of lessons to get through. There are a lot of foundational concepts we know need to be covered, and that's why that in itself has a separate situation there. We also include time for those assessments that we talked about, because we do need time to work one-on-one with those students to complete that. So that's how that comes together. There's a variety of tools bulleted here. Some of that academic information we looked at, but this is the way we are keeping an eye on our students' progress throughout each trimester. The one that I do want to drill down to is that reading readiness assessment. Even before new legislation has come through, the state has mandated that at the 4K2 level, we do administer a unique reading readiness assessment. Prior to this, we have been using a tool called PALS. Hallie is phasing out. We also could count our MAC assessment that we do in reading, but we don't feel that while that's really good information, it's not giving us enough about all of the sub skills that go into creating a young reader. We looked at a number of different tools, and then we came together and wrote our own that is reflective in all of the sub skills that are covered. So for board members, that yellow folder in front of you, you'll see an example of that first grade assessment that's given one-to-one to our students. You'll see a copy of the first grade report card. It is our legal responsibility to report out on the child's progress on each of those sub skills, and that's how that assessment is then communicated through our report card 3 times a year to if our students are meeting those expectations. We also report out to our parents if students are at, below, or above grade level throughout the year as well. We feel that we need to be very open with families about that. If they are working below grade level, we also meet with our families and explain what are we doing to reteach and remediate for that student as well. So I just wanted to snapshot that. The outcomes, in addition to some of the data we shared, we feel that we're very excited about that equity and resources and materials that are available in all of our classrooms. There is a small percentage of students that may begin second grade at one school and finish at another elementary school in our community. We know that that transition will be seamless because our teachers are all communicating across the district. We're all working together on that scope and sequence and what makes the most sense. Is every teacher teaching the same exact lesson on every single day? No, it's not that type of oversight, but they are setting a pace that allows for them to be reflective with their students' data they gather, provide more instruction, reteaching on some things, but if students are showing mastery here, that might be a lesson that they can open and move forward in that progression. Again, we're excited that the reading and writing is now aligned. We feel that the academic rigor has increased. We continue to work and stay updated with those science findings in the area of reading, and our list goes on and on. I think I do want to just share that we are excited. We have been very blessed to have Jennifer Wharton, the children's librarian here at the Maxim Memorial Library, working with us hand in hand to pull additional resources for our classrooms. Our kids are surrounded by rich literature that they have time to take a look at, whether that's supporting us for one of our units at the 4th grade level, just providing level text. The circulation for the Elkhorn Library is one of the highest in the state. And she said Elkhorn is definitely a community of readers, and that begins with our youngest ones. So thank you to Jennifer Wharton. Quickly, this is all new information that is coming to us. Tony Evers has approved legislation that has come out of the State Assembly and Senate. So beginning in January of 2025, all Wisconsin districts will need to utilize a reading curriculum that is approved from a select list of resources. And last week I was inquiring, well, what's on the list? Like, can we get a look at this so we can start previewing these materials? The list is not completed. The committee who will be selecting what is on the list has not been formed yet. It is my understanding in talking with people like DPI that it will involve 3 of our assembly people, 3 from our Senate, and 3 from the Department of Instruction to start reviewing what they feel is effective research-based curriculum, and they will start to generate that list so that we can take a look at that. In moving to new material, I think it's really important from a fiscal lens. That would be at minimum probably a $300,000 adoption for our K-5 level. Keep in mind that as part of this legislation, if choosing off the select list, 50% of that would be covered by the state. We would be reimbursed. So that's just something to file away from that fiscal lens. We want to look through the lens of what's best for students, how are our students doing, but we do have to be fiscally responsible as well. In addition to that, all of our K-3 teachers across the state will be receiving additional training on foundational reading and phonics instruction. And again, DPI continues to work with our legislature in guiding that work. I'm sure more information will be forthcoming this week, as far as what that's going to look like and how quickly that will come together. So our recommendation, knowing what is happening at the state level, is that we should continue to support classroom teachers with the tools they are utilizing to teach reading, continue that ongoing PD and coaching opportunities as we have been doing. If the data said otherwise, I would be telling you probably a different recommendation tonight, but I do stand by the success that we are presently having. I feel that success is there because of the pivots that we have made along the lines to make sure that this meets the needs of our students. We will continue to monitor that student progress. We have that built into weekly PLC meetings, trimester meetings where our building administrators and myself are right there with our teachers going through the data, seeing how our students are doing. Right now, we are looking at some materials in the area of math. The present textbook we're using in math will be outdated and not in publication as of next year. We have some really remarkable data in the area of math, but it is time for us to do a deep dive into that area. And as a classroom teacher, those are our two cornerstone curriculums. So as we are working to implement the math, these wonderful people here tonight, as well as educators from all of our sites, will come back together to, again, begin this process all over again, which in a sense never has really stopped. It just keeps evolving, but with much more oversight from the state level forward. And of course, we'll be reporting back to the school board with every step that we take and what those recommendations will be as we move to implementation after January of 2025. Okay, any final questions? A big thank you to everyone who stayed to hear this presentation tonight. I think you lucked out. We have a lot of people who are passionate about the work they do. We're here in the summer at 922, pretty revved up about our ELA program. We will state if there are final questions, anything that we can answer for you at the end. School board members, if you have any questions, concerns, anything that you would like addressed yet this evening?
I do actually. I have a couple questions. First off, let me start off with not a question, more of a statement. I've mentioned this before during our budget retreat. It's worth mentioning again. 20 to 25% of all students across the United States have dyslexia. That represents approximately 90% of all student learning disabilities. We've just been in here for a full hour listening to your entire presentation, and I didn't hear the word once. I didn't hear dyslexia. I didn't hear anything along those lines. It's a travesty if we're talking about 20 to 25% of the individuals that are in the school district that has that type of learning disability, and 90% of them have that learning disability specifically. I mean, what are we doing to be able to make sure that those individuals are not being left behind? The reason I mentioned this, as I've stated to you, but I will repeat it again, I'm financially able to be able to pay for private tutoring for my kids. I have 5 children right now that all have dyslexia. I'm lucky. Most families are not lucky. They don't have the funds to be able to pay $50 an hour per student to be able to get dyslexia tutoring. So they rely on our school district to be able to help them support that. What are we doing to be able to help them?
I think our committee here will say that I knew this question would come up. I know where your passion sits. Rather than having a targeted slide, I wanted you to present that question, and I'm happy to respond, and also welcoming comments from our educators tonight. I want to begin first by saying, as educators, we are not able to make a dyslexia diagnosis, as you are aware. That has to be diagnosed by an outside source, be that a pediatrician, psychologist. As you know, extensive testing goes into making that determination. Do we have red flags that go up? Do we, as educators who've been doing this that long, have a gut feeling at times? You bet we do. Legally, are we able to go to that family and say, we think your child has dyslexia? We are not able to do that. Can we encourage outside assessment, things like that? Yes, we can. So right now, the way the laws are set up, There are things we can and cannot do as far as diagnosing a child, and we cannot do that. However, if you've taken a close look at just the first grade assessment, and keep in mind, there's a kindergarten one, we even have one in 4K. We look so carefully at that information, which feeds into a little database. And as students are not securing those skills and they are flagging red and red and red across the board, that's a flag. Those are some things that we are looking at carefully. When that happens, those students will enter into a tier 3 reading intervention. The tools we didn't even go into tonight are those that are selected from the What Works Clearinghouse. Those two are research-based, and we have many different tools we use to help a child struggling with, say, decoding, which would definitely go wrong with the area of dyslexia. Also, fluency comprehension. And we look at that child through more diagnostic testing that we can do. Again, we cannot diagnose dyslexia, but we can diagnose where we feel some of those learning concerns are. And our reading specialists then meet with those children for 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, and progress monitor that child weekly to see if improvement is there. If we do not see improvement, we are legally bound to then start a second intervention with a different tool, same process, 30 minutes, 5 days a week. If we do not see progress, we start a third intervention, and this is 10 to 12 weeks at a time, 10 to 12 weeks at a time. Constant communication with the family. How is that going? What's happening? Those reading specialists are in those family conferences as well. If at that point we detect that there could be a learning disability, again, we cannot identify dyslexia, but we can identify that, we would then make that recommendation for the child to go through a special education referral. When they would move into special education, we have 2 Orton Gillingham resources available in the school district, which is found to be rather successful with students who have dyslexia. One is the Wilson Reading Program, the second being the Sonde system. Some of our reading specialists and our reading and our special education teachers are trained in those tools, and those then get implemented as part of those students' IEP plans. So that is how we do address it at this very young level. I think we're in a better place now than say 5 or 6 years ago, is that reading readiness assessment that starts drilling down, and we don't see progress on those skills, we're taking action. So, yep, I'm so glad you asked that. Thank you.
Amy, in your opinion, would you say that a reading specialist or a special education teacher would be better educated and have a better ability to diagnose a child with dyslexia than a pediatrician?
Well, that's a tough question.
I understand what the law says. I'm just trying to understand, how can we get this law changed? Because this made no sense whatsoever.
I know, and if you ask my opinion, and I'm going to go to Carrie in a minute, I also feel that perhaps reading specialists and others who have master's degrees in reading should be part of the committees who are going to start choosing these materials for us to use as well. But I'm going to go to Carrie, our kindergarten teacher. Go ahead, Carrie.
Again, I'm not an expert, I'm not a doctor, but to kind of go off of that, my education is starting at birth. Well, I added on, so I can technically go to 8th grade, but early childhood is my specialty. And what I would tell you is that in most cases with dyslexia, you are not going to get a pediatrician to give you a diagnosis at that 1st and 2nd grade level, because you would have to prove to what Amy said, is this a learning disability that is more cognition than specifically dyslexia? Because when they're 5 and 6, their job is to learn how to read. So if you say to them, well, can they read, and they're only in kindergarten, they're probably going to push you away a little bit, because they're going to say to you, you need to give it time. So while we have all these wonderful resources in place, and the same can be said about a special ed diagnosis, the state is really, really pushing back on not identifying any children under the age of 6 years, because they need that time to grow and evolve. So to say what Amy is saying, the resources are in place, the interventions are in place, but even getting a diagnosis before third grade with specifically dyslexia, it's very rare. It's very rare.
I understand that. I had a student that was in special ed,
Yeah.
but I'm talking, okay, now we're in third grade, right? Kids still can't read. Why are we relying on, I mean, I understand you guys can do it, but it's what the law states, so I'm just trying to understand how can we start advocating for these kids at the legislative level and talk to our legislators.
I believe, and I think we have to do some deeper reading, there is some information on dyslexia that is also included in Assembly Bill 321. I can't speak to that tonight because again, I don't know what was approved or not by Tony Evers. They are aware that this is a situation, but I don't believe it will go as far as some teachers will be able to make that diagnosis. I think the important thing is what would change in that child's experience in Elkhorn, whether or not they can access that expert or not. And I feel what we're saying tonight is we will provide and dig deeply into our toolkits to give that student what they need with our specialists on board to do so. So whether they can get that formal dyslexia diagnosis or whether, they may fall into the special ed, we'll continue to work on that with the family, but that child's instruction will be tailored for their needs. And when this tool doesn't work, we're going to go to the next one and we'll explain to the family why. We don't just throw things every different week at them. We're really methodical, but if we don't see that graph start to tick in the right direction, we will move on to another tool for that child, all children.
Can I just add?
Go ahead, Cindy.
I think even before we get to that point, classroom teachers, we are watching that data and regrouping and going back to try other strategies with those students before they even, evolve. It's kind of like a tier 2 area where, we kind of know how to also work with those students and provide additional resources. And I think any student that has been not necessarily concerned ourselves with exactly what is going on and what label would that have, just how do we help that student in the way in which they need to.
Thank you, Cindy.
The evolution of 4K, because I started here before there was 4K, has also advanced the process for us because they come in with data now. So kindergarten, it used to be like, here you go, I don't know what you're gonna get, like the surprise bag or the toy in the cereal box, because there was nothing on these kids. And so now we have the early intervention of 4K that gives the building so much valuable information.
Thank you. It's a good point.
How much would you say that queuing strategies are used as compared to sounding out words, the application of phonics?
Yeah, I'm glad Julie brings that question up because there is concern over the difference between queuing and that phonetic approach. The research is now finding that for many readers, getting students to read through the word is our starting point. And we have gone back, in fact, and rewritten our superpowers unit, which dealt a little bit more with queuing. And queuing strategies are, I'm going to go on my limb here and say they're not horrible. For higher readers, that may work for them faster because they don't struggle with decoding as much. So taking a glance to see what picture is there, they go quickly and they can move through to say, does that word look right? What's something on the page that could help you solve that word? Those are some queuing strategies. But what research is saying is there's no way around the word. We have to stop getting students to work around the word and go through the word. So this is why we're stepping back to really address those decoding skills. And that is the first tool in the toolkit students are to use. And so we have re-ranked that as this is your #1 superpower of reading in our school district. And that is to read through the word. And we practice that often in our phonics program. The decodable books that Cindy outlined does an amazing job. So if we are working with the short A vowel sounds, I mean, some of us, and Julie, I'm going to date us, probably had some Dick and Jane and Spot and those awful decodable books that we can now, buy at antique places, which had no plot. There was no storyline. It was just a lot of rhyming words forced on a page. These decodable books that we are leaning into, there's actually an amazing plot. There's great character development. The kids are excited to read, but these books, these are really challenging books for our readers because they have to work on those decoding skills. But if we're really focused on, say, that short vowel sound, be that what it may, this really gives them time to practice. And Cindy did some research with these tools in her room this year and found that 3 days out of the week using that text and then 2 days using, say, a nonfiction text at grade level, then gave them a chance to apply those skills where it wasn't maybe such a pattern, but they could then enjoy nonfiction as well, and then come back the next week and pick up with, say, the short I or the short E. So we as K2 have really revisited that to the point where we may be based, say, in the units of study or in Qantas and Canal, but we're also rewriting these lessons. In fact, in your folder, you'll see some of those spoken sequences for the phonics for grade 1. I also included an example unit for grade 1 where you'll see, what are these supplement A? What is lesson B? That's where our teachers have gone in. We can write these lessons. I mean, we're not trying to throw down with Lucy Hawkins here, but we can do really good work. And we know this is better now. So we've omitted some lessons and we have, reordered things so that the number one superpower is going
So
to
do
do
you
the work.
feel like, cueing strategies are taking more of a backseat to phonics learning?
They definitely are. And if we hadn't already started this work, the Assembly Bill 321 definitely has a lot to say about cueing strategies, and that should not be what educators are dealing with in the classroom anymore. I have a feeling that's going to be part of that youth teaching for our K3 across, the whole state will be going through this.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
First, I move to get into air conditioning unit in the auditorium. And throughout your presentation, you addressed a lot of my concerns. I did read a lot of the reviews. A ton of them, I spent an entire weekend reading through this, so I appreciate you addressing that. It is awesome to hear this, the queuing thing is kind of going by the wayside. I'd kind of, just for me, this isn't, we don't need to dive into it tonight, but I'd like to know kind of how this all started. How did we get here that we're now looking back? Because, we've combined 3 to 5 years with all you guys that spoke up here. How did we get here? It seems like we missed the mark, and where this all started, this request. I talked to a lot of the kids, my friends, these different kids, and one of the kids said, they were reading a sentence and couldn't read the word crustacean. I said, sound it out. Literally couldn't sound it out. He said, oh, well, this says fish and this says bass and this is something, so it's got to be a fish. So what are you talking about? And the kid could not sound out this word. So that's where I kind of started digging on this. Yeah, and this is, I really appreciate this presentation and the time you put into it, because you addressed a lot of the concerns that I had. And I think as long as we're addressing it, we're looking at it. I think a couple of parents have spoken to it. So I love the fact that we're, Kelly, you spoke to it. I think this is awesome that we're addressing it, we're recognizing that we're doing something about it. So, thank you. I had so many more questions, but you answered them. So thank you very much.
Again, I will always fall back on data-driven decision making. And if this data from our students, from area districts in comparison to us, because let's face it, we want to have the strongest ELA program we can, and from our families overall, I feel that we know change is coming and we're going to be following those state mandates. I feel though that in the interim, we're going to be better than okay. I mean, I think our data says that we're better than okay. It's really hard to trust your educators that were on point. That's why we were excited as I went through this preparation this last week. I got more and more excited because what we were unearthing was solid. And if parents tonight and others that talk to you do not feel that this is working for their child, this is where we go with classroom, teacher, family, and child, and we need to have dialogue first at that level to see what they're seeking that we may not be providing, because there is not a classroom teacher here who isn't willing to sit down and work with each family to ensure that that child is. Thank you for your words as well.
I think I just say one thing. My daughter is in third grade going into fourth, and she was one of the kids in kindergarten when the shutdown happened. And we were concerned about it, but the school did an amazing job getting her back up to grade level reading. And when you say that this school district is full of readers, I agree with that, because my daughter loves to go to the bookstore almost more than going to the toy store. I mean, honestly, she just loves the trip to Barnes and Noble. So I believe that. Thank you.
And I do want to chime in my quick 2 cents. I know this is a long presentation, but again, I want to thank all the teachers and the staff and the work that they've done over the years. And I want everybody to know, and I think this is a great question that was brought up to the board and a good opportunity to review. It is in depth because it takes a lot of work, a lot of effort. It is something that is reviewed on a regular basis. I do want to share, I'm very nervous with the state legislation and a mandated shift. Although they did put in a backdoor, as Wisconsin always does, you can choose to go your own route so long as your curriculum is certified to meet the science of reading. And why am I nervous? The same reason that I'm nervous about math. All 3 of our elementary schools use the same approach. This has been something, Adam asked the question, how do we go about when we make these decisions? Whenever we make a curriculum adoption, it's that, and we're talking about doing that council, but we bring together the teachers, we bring together the group. And the first step is we look at who are the highest performing districts in the state. What are they doing? We go on site visits, we visit them, we look at them, we have conversations with them. Amy shared with you that regressive study and analysis, who are the most highest achieving school districts in the state of Wisconsin are the 21 blue ribbon schools that she looked at over the past 3 years. And by far, it's not a coincidence or a coincidence that they were using the same process, because everybody visits, they look at that. We have schools that they go and they look at this data and they say, holy smokes, Tibbetts Elementary is at the very top of the heap on ELA achievement. What are you guys doing? They come to us and they ask that. So that's how we always start this process and this analysis and this regressive study, and we look at that. And we have same results, similar results across our elementary schools. We have different demographics among them, but I can tell you, over at Westside Elementary, that K-3 team and what Cindy Reber and her team does, their growth marks, I don't want to embarrass you, but they're close to 100% of their students getting their growth targets in all of their classes. And that does not statistically happen. They are blowing it out of the water. So I am nervous, just like we were as we're going through the math adoption. I told Amy, I get that. People have a hard time wrapping their head around. Well, why do we adopt a curriculum that says second grade level, my kid's in first grade? Well, when we went back and looked at it, that's what we felt the rigor level was for most students in the school district. I'm nervous. I shared that anxiety because our math achievement numbers are at the top of Walworth County, Rock County, Kenosha County, and Racine. We're a top 10% achieving district. And so it makes me nervous when we go to change or modify that. In the instance of math, it's kind of forced. We don't really have a choice. So it does make me nervous when we see performance like this. And are we going to be forced to change? Will it be better? Because, I hope it increases it even further. But when you're at the 98.1 percentile of all K-5 schools in the state of Wisconsin, that's a pretty, first and foremost, I want to do no harm. But that's my 2 cents I'd add there. I just want to keep that in mind. And in part because really what we have is our own. And this team of teachers and educators have worked tirelessly to put that together and make it work for our students. So thank you to all of you. Personnel items. Holy cow, it's a small personnel sheet this week. I haven't seen one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there isn't anybody on.
There's nobody on. Okay, we had so I would table this, I wouldn't be approving these, I apologize, if we get those added in time prior to the agenda going out. We do have an individual identified for the reading and administrative position. We did have an individual who backed out of the district, so, yeah, we should just like this. We'll have those, hopefully, the district accountant added, we will have the high school, reading interventions. I don't have any school gifts for this evening or announcements, so we're at that point to adjourn to, closed session.
All right, thank you for a motion to adjourn to closed session.
I move to adjourn to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, parent 1, parent C, consider salary adjustments for supervisors and administrators. The school board will reconvene in open session for action as appropriate in order to adjourn.
Is there a second? So moved and seconded to return to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.851C. To consider salary adjustments for supervisors and administrators, the school board will reconvene in open session for actions appropriate and or to adjourn. Roll call vote.
Roderick? Kate Harvick? Gatti? Yes. Angel?
Yes.
Giordano?
Yes.
Gregory? Yes. Carol?
Motion carried.